Welcome back to the Warp Storm podcast. Holy shit, we're doing another one of these. It has been more than a year, I think, since we did a Warp Storm podcast. I might be wrong. I'm guessing at that, but nobody's really gonna get me in trouble if I'm lying to you, so it is what I said it is. Today, we are interviewing the owners of Oddwillow's Game Haven.
Yep.
Jen and Robyn. Hey, say hello, guys.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Jen.
I'm Robyn.
How are you guys doing today?
Good.
Tired.
Tired, but, it's always running around, right?
Yeah.
It's always doing stuff.
Yeah, as a game store owner, did you, before you guys did this, did you expect to be this busy all the time? I guess that's an assumption, right? Are you guys busy all the time?
Oh my God.
We started the store with the mindset of man, we're gonna have so much more time for our kids and our family.
Right.
And that was just the biggest lie I think we've ever told
So
to
bad.
ourselves.
Do you want to hear the lie I told myself?
Sure.
I
Yes.
said, I'm starting this store so that I can have so much more time for my hobbies. I'm going to cheat the system. I never have time to game.
No.
But what if I made gaming my career? There we go. Yeah, and it ended up being a lie.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like we have less time to play games now than we did before.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
And honestly, if I'm being totally real with you guys, gaming doesn't feel like anything other than work now.
A little bit.
Yeah. Because you always go into it playing a board game or something okay, can my customers get behind this?
Right.
What would they think about it?
Right.
And
How
so
am I going to pitch it to them? What are the
Exactly,
selling points?
yeah.
Right. And so it's you want to sit down and play a game, but then you're oh man, I got to remember how to play this now because I got to teach somebody down the line. Or
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
whole different.
I never played many board games.
Yeah.
And we don't do a lot of board games here in the store. So board games are my new kind of avenue for actual gaming. Or if I sit down and
Nice.
play a board game, I'm I fuck with this. This is easy.
Yeah.
Where if I play D&D, which was my game before, I'm just no, thanks. Somebody gifted me Baldur's Gate 3.
Oh, wow.
And as soon as I started playing it, I'm fuck no, I can't. This is literally work. I can't do it. So on the topic, why did you guys want to start or tell me about why it started? How did you go from not owning a game store to owning a game store?
Do you want to start?
So Jen was a stay-at-home mom for a while and was just about to get back into the workforce. And I had quit this just really terrible job. The boss was just awful, and I couldn't stand him. And I went outside on my front porch one day, and the building across the street, which was previously the local police department, had gone up for lease. And kind of mostly joking, I texted Jen a picture of the sign on the front of the building. And I was like, hey, we should start that business that we've always talked about. And it very quickly turned into not a joke. And within an hour, I was talking to the realtor for the building. And then the next morning, me, Jen, and her husband, Ben, went into the building and were kind of looking around. And then we went to this cafe next door and sat down for, I think, 3 hours.
It was 3. It was longer than that. I think we closed the place out.
I think so. And just sat down and all right, if we're going to do this, this is our business plan. This is what we want it to look like. This is what we're going to focus on. And it turned into what we called speedrunning opening a game store because we don't do anything simple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think one of the big things too when we had the idea to open it was we just didn't want to. We were done working for other people.
Yeah.
Because we both came from marketing careers, and I was in marketing for 16 years, and Robyn was 4 or 5 at the time, something like that, and so we just were really done with working for other people and for not feeling appreciated or we had control over what we were doing.
Yeah.
There's this really funny thing, especially in the corporate world, where the people who manage the marketing department or kind of oversee it don't really understand what goes into marketing.
Right.
And they have this completely unrealistic idea of how quickly things should go
Right.
or how long projects should take.
Correct.
Or how quickly you should get results, and trying to explain it to somebody who just doesn't really understand how it works. It's just exhausting.
You know, I do all of our marketing here. You know, like we divide the roles into departments.
Yeah.
And my 2 departments are the RPG that we have going, which has 80 players now, so it's literally a full-time
Which is incredible,
Yeah.
by the way.
Thanks. And then the other thing is our marketing. So anything that has our like our branded footprint, if it's on socials or if it's printed anywhere, that's my job. And I get into this conversation a lot with the people around me, sometimes my business partners and sometimes other people, about how marketing works and like just how really fucking nebulous it is.
Yes.
Where like you're trying a lot of stuff
Yep.
and everything works to some degree. And the formula that you figure out works sometimes in different contexts for different people.
Yes.
And they're like in different industries and stuff. And then to see the results, it's tracking different metrics at different times, and maybe this worked, or maybe it was because this was happening at the same time. You know, like it's who knows really?
And it's so hard to explain too,
Right.
like because it's like, okay, well, yes, we're going to do this marketing thing, but it's going to take 3 to 4 months
Right.
to see the results. And like that is like mind blowing to people who just don't understand it.
Like, what do you mean? You can't just like post a thing and then the people come in because you posted the thing?
Right.
Like, well, no, because like, did they see it? You know, like, did they even look at it? How many times does a person have to look at a thing before it even registers that they've looked at the thing?
Right.
Because like, I scroll right past some shit sometimes. You know, like if I'm on Facebook, I'm just like, meh, meh, meh. And unless the branding or the brand recognition is so drilled into me that, and I like it so much that I will actually stop at the little, you know, brand marker, I'll miss a thing. And we've had people, we've been like, there's times where we'll market a thing for a month, say, and then people will be like, oh, I never knew that you were doing that. And it's like homies, like people who you'd expect would stop at the marketing, you know?
Yep.
We get it all the time where people will be like, man, it'd be so cool if you guys do this kind of event. And we get so much feedback that we should do this thing. So we do it. And then we post it all over our socials, all over Discord. It's posted in the store. There's no reason that like the regulars shouldn't come to it. And then we get like 2 people and we're like, you guys wanted this. And then eventually we end up cutting it off because it doesn't work, and then people come back and they're like, oh, I totally missed it, I didn't even know you were doing that. I was like, I don't know how else to tell you.
Yeah, our communications apparatus is more precise now than it was 2.5 years ago. But what is that precision, really? You know, like it's incredible how much attention it requires for a person to actually like put something into their brain.
Yeah. And it's constant. You just have to smack them over the head with it.
Yeah.
Like, constantly.
And you could literally put a poster in the main lobby and just be like, this is happening, and no one will see it.
Yep.
They'll walk right past it.
Well, and that's one of the things, too, in marketing, especially now because when I started in marketing, everything was very print heavy. So like my specialty was very much print. It was catalogs, sell sheets, all that kind of stuff. And as marketing's transitioned over the last like 20 years or so, it's become really that fast, like TikTok-y, like super quick, and like you've
short attention span.
Exactly.
Where you got like 3 seconds?
Yep. Right.
Something
even.
really absurd like that?
Yeah. If there's too much words on it or too much copy, no one reads it.
Right.
Because they would rather just walk past it and ignore it than try to read the information.
Although, because none of this ever makes sense, one of the things that worked out for us in the first year that we were doing this is that I would do a weekly newsletter where it was tons of copy. Like, it was literally, like, I would spend the entire Monday just writing out this massive 12-page thing. And I did it every Monday for a full year. And that was super successful for us. Like, weirdly, people fucking loved it. Like, they were reading it, and they're like, oh, yeah, I read that in the newsletter. And I'm just like, what the hell? And, like, even competitors, I heard their customers going, you should do a newsletter like Warpstorm. Like,
that's crazy.
Which is not, it's counterintuitive.
Yeah.
To, like, my mentality there was that it was like, while you don't like copy in advertisements, you do like seeing how the sausage is made.
Exactly.
So there's something different about the way that we were doing it. But I think in the end, the movings and goings got too big, and we weren't able to. That would have been a 24-page newsletter every week.
yeah.
I just didn't have it in me to write that much. So, and we've been talking about marketing, but I really do want to get your take. As marketing professionals going into this industry, and really going into owning a business, how happy are you that you had a marketing background going into this?
Extremely.
It made us completely different, and both to a customer base, but also within the industry and to our peers, and kind of gave us this really great starting point to get our name out there and kind of be able to launch ourselves a little bit harder, a little bit faster than a lot of other game stores might have been able to. But it also gave us a really interesting perspective that a lot of people in the industry, especially retailers and game stores, kind of sought, because it's not a super common thing, I guess, for people with marketing backgrounds to open a game store.
I've heard of some people doing it, but it's one of those things where I felt like with the background we had, we were able to hit the ground running much faster. And we had a very clear vision and direction, because once we landed on it, it was like, yes, this is it. And then for us, because we had worked together before in a marketing career, so we knew how to work together and how our workflow went. And so once we had decided like the major, like, okay, this is the name, this is the brand, these are the colors, we were able just to hit the ground running and make a lot of that happen. And we did a lot of initial research too, like what are the stores in the area, that kind of stuff. Just standard marketing research. And it kind of led us in the direction that we're in now to make things different.
Yeah, and it definitely gave us kind of an interesting perspective on the things that we jumped into and kind of how heavy we hit community events and where we reached out and where we advertised things. And a lot of it was not necessarily untapped market, but especially around us, just hadn't really been explored as much. So it definitely set us apart a little bit.
Yeah, and especially because we're kind of like on the edge of rural Wisconsin,
right.
Like pretty far out there. I mean, because there's probably about a 25-minute bubble around us for the most part.
You're about 25 minutes from us.
Yeah.
And how close are you to GU Franklin?
Further. It's probably like it's about the same actually.
Yeah.
I think 25 to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So and then like Geneva's like 25 minutes, and then there's a couple other stores that are a little bit west of us, but they're like 25 minutes. So we kind of have this bubble around us.
Sure.
I think the closest place is in Waukesha, and that's maybe 15 to 20 minutes away.
Okay.
And so we're kind of in this like zone of emptiness a little bit. And it's nice because our area, Mukwonago, it's really building. And so there's lots of houses going up. There's lots of other businesses going up. Yeah. And so we wanted to jump in,
Yeah, because you guys aren't too rural. Like Mukwonago is still, I mean, it's like a village or a town.
It's a village, and it's considered a suburb of Milwaukee, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, no way, of Milwaukee?
So, because we're right off of 43.
Yeah.
So, and we're and on the way to Beloit and stuff, and so pretty highly trafficked, and because of its location, it's been growing significantly.
Right.
So it was definitely like this is where we want to open.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if you've got an eye or a sense for longevity, like you expect to be there for some time.
Yeah.
Being in an outskirt town where you don't have a lot of competition, where you can establish yourself as one of the first people there as the town is growing and growing, that's really good, especially if you guys are doing well early on. Because then that just means, 10 years down the line, that's a huge, footprint that you have.
Well, that was the goal too. Is we wanted to be around for a long time because we knew going into it, like game stores, they close all the time, and it's
retail as a tendency.
Retail in general, and there's I think what our bank told us when we were talking to them, it was like a lot of retail and especially game stores have like a 1.5 to 2 year like life,
Jesus,
right?
fucking knock on wood. I
know. We're all knocking on wood here. But like that's that was the statistic that was given to us. Right. And I was like, we're going to blow that out of the water. Yeah. I want to make that happen. We're going to blow it out of the water.
I feel like you need to, like with all things, so I always compare opening a game store to parenting. You guys are both parents, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I also am a parent. And,
I didn't know that.
The trials and tribulations of being a parent are really interesting because while it is the most rewarding thing that could possibly happen to a human being, it's also the most difficult, It causes a lot of like, if you want to do it right, if you're trying to figure out how to do it right, you need to be working at it all the time and never let your guard down.
Right.
You know? And I feel like opening a business, and I've seen other businesses. My partner of 10 years and her sister, who is also my partner here, her sister's my partner here, they opened up a coffee shop 7 years ago, La Finca Coffee House in St. Francis. And I watched them do it. In fact, they were a tremendous influence in like me thinking that I had the capacity to do it, just watching the tenacity that it took to get through it. And I really like think that most businesses are that. It's rewarding, incredibly rewarding. I'm very happy with my store, and I'm sure you guys are too. You guys have an awesome store. But it takes everything out of you, you know? Like it takes so much. And so what I always tell people is, you're not ready. You're not ready.
No, you never
just like with
are.
parenting. You're not ready.
You can read as many books as you want. You'll never be ready.
Nothing will prepare you.
No.
But if you think you're ready, if you've got that, we're going to make it 10 fucking years, like that kind of mentality.
Yeah.
Okay, well then you're probably the most ready you could be.
Exactly.
You're not ready. When you get into it, you're going to be like, oh shit, this sucks bad. But if you have that tenacity, I feel like, okay, then you try it. You know,
Yep.
If you don't have that confidence, don't even think about it.
No,
you know? Like you need to have a lot of confidence.
Yes.
You know, like we'll call it confidence to think that you could do something like this. But once you get in it, like I was lucky enough to have partners. You know, and like you guys have a strong team. And I met Ben, you know, early on, and it really seemed like you guys had. Like the qualifying experience to do something like this. But yeah, I don't think a solo operation, I understand why businesses like this fail early on because it's fires. Especially the first year, it's fires. And you're putting them on, you're putting them out every second that you're alive. You're just trying to figure out how to put all of the fires out. And who wants that in their lives, especially if you're coming from something that's stable. Like when I started this, I had left Games Workshop. I had I was working for Games Workshop. I managed their Milwaukee store for 3 years, and that was a good job. Like that was 38 hours a week, period. You know, paid time off, benefits, sick leave. You know, if it was too cold outside, I could just be like, hey guys, I'm closing the store, and that's it. No asking, no nothing. You know, and then I was like, hey, I'm doing really good here. Like I'm really killing it here. Maybe I could do this on my own. Get a little bigger piece of the pie, you know?
Yeah.
So like I'm happy that I'm here. But if like I could go back in a time machine and show that guy what he was going to go through to get here, that guy would have been like, no, absolutely not. No, I'm not doing that. I'll just stay here and make decent money, you know?
Well, and that's always part of it, right? Because there comes a point when you own a store, and we just went through this really recently. It's like, were we right in doing this? Like you always question yourself because there comes a point between burnout and stress. And oh my God, like it was right before Gamma Expo for us, I think.
This year?
Yeah. Because our furnaces went out.
Jeez.
Again.
Yeah. And you own your building.
We own our building, so that's all on us.
That's huge. You guys took on 2 major responsibilities.
We did, and that's a whole thing that we can get into. But like our furnaces went out. They were fine for 2 days, and then they went out again. And then our bathrooms overflowed. And so, like, it was all within, like, 3 or 4 days that this happened. And I was like, why are we doing this to ourselves?
Right. Yeah.
You know, and you really question your existence sometimes.
Because it's all on you.
Yeah.
Well, comparing it to parenting is such a great analogy because it's like, just like with a baby, I just put you down like 5 minutes ago. Why are you crying now?
Yeah.
And you go and pick them up, and it's like, why do you have shit up your back? Right. And it's like every
and you
time
can't like take it to somebody and you feel like hey, something's going on.
Yeah.
That's you.
Yep.
You have to deal with it.
Exactly. And then,
and God help you if you do it wrong.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But you never know if you did it wrong until way farther down the line where you can't fix it anymore.
Yeah. Well, and like, it's one of those too, like you have those great moments, you know, like I love my son. I love my son to pieces. He's an asshole. He's the sweetest asshole on the planet, but still. But like you look at him and go, oh, you're so sweet when you tell me you love me.
Right.
And then like 5 seconds later, you're like, damn it. What did you get into?
Yeah, it's really interesting.
And as owners too, everybody does things differently.
Right.
Right.
Because the things that work for me won't work for you.
Exactly.
The things that work for you will not work for me.
Right.
And so, like, we can give each other advice. But, like, what?
And we can share stories and stuff, but, like, it's so interesting because every store does it a little differently. And that's one of the things, too, that when we took a lot of advice and a lot of starting from our mentors and stuff that we've had, a lot of it we just didn't or couldn't use because it's like, this is not going to work for us because of our model or because of our demographic,
totally
you know, and your demographic here, in Greenfield outside Milwaukee is way different than ours over there.
Yeah.
You know, it's a whole different ballgame for us because we have to cater a lot towards families and community events to survive.
Right.
You know, where
we are a big city.
Exactly.
And so there's just a lot more.
There's just more traffic in general.
So much more traffic.
Yep.
You can be a little bit more direct about what demographic you're trying to attract.
Yeah.
Where when you have less people, you have to just catch a wider
for
net.
everybody, yeah. And so that's why we decided to like do a lot of events. We're engaging a lot more this year, especially in community events and stuff.
Yeah.
And where we brought in a lot of gift types items and consignment stuff that we brought in because we knew that if we only catered to gamers or people who are already experienced in games, we would fail.
Yeah.
So, and part of what we do and what we try to focus on is converting new gamers. Right?
Yes.
We had that same mentality. We we don't do it as much anymore because we're kind of restructuring the way that we do it, but we had the Warp Storm Gaming Academy, which was the idea that, like, you're not really necessarily fighting over existing customers if you're creating new customers.
Exactly.
You know? Like, if you're just, enfranchising people that aren't yet enfranchised.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One of the things that really impressed me about you guys the earliest on was your TikTok. Because
That's all her brainchild.
right.
I don't know about brainchild. I feel like that's a little heavy.
it's the what?
chaos
the
child.
mind flayer, the brain sucker that just. So.
I remember I was in a D&D game and somebody came up to me and they were just like, "Oh yeah, we were just at Oddwillow's." And I'm like, I've never even heard of that place. And they're just like, "Oh yeah, they've got a really big online presence. You should check them out." And I'm like, okay. And then we did our session, and afterwards I checked out your TikTok, and I saw a video that you had just done that went giga-viral. Or, just...
Oh, the Dice Tower
Yeah,
one?
exactly, the Dice Tower one. It just had so many eyes on it compared to anything that we had ever done. And I was just like, oh, this is really cool and really fun, and they're like fucking 20 minutes away. That's crazy. And then so I think it was like 2 days later on like a day off. At that point, I still had Saturdays off. And I drove out to your store, and the moment I walked in, I saw your D&D room, and I was like, fuck me. Like, this is the coolest fucking store.
I remember I remember that day because I remember you coming in because I think it was Ben and I working at the time, and you were looking around in Dice, and I was, and it was really cool. At the time too, we were just so excited to have new customers in the store, and I was like,
No, and it really was like I did some amount of local research, I guess.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
But, like, not a lot. Because I was already a local gamer here, so I knew the local stores, Like, I had run Games Workshop, so during that time, like, I was going to GU and I was going to Battle Brothers, and, like, so when it was time to open up the store, I didn't do a lot of market research, And so when you guys opened up, I didn't have, even now, I think I have my finger on the pulse a little bit more now, as far as like new stores that are opening up in the area, but especially not at that time. I didn't really know that you guys had opened up or anything like that. I didn't, I wasn't filling my mind with like where are my competitors or anything like that.
Right.
So when I went to go check you guys out, it genuinely was as a customer. It was to experience what this store that was doing really cool online and clearly a little D&D centric
a little bit
was doing. And when I went out there, I was so impressed. Like your store, you had been open for like 6 months, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
at this time.
not even. I think it was like 3 or 4 months of the time.
Really early on.
It was super early on, and the store looked fucking beautiful. Like it looks great now, like even better. But when I remember I walked in, I'm like, there's no way these people just opened up. Your D&D room was nuts. Like it was really impressive how much you were able to do in such a short amount of time. Like it took us forever to get this done.
Yeah.
And so, it was really cool. And then just hearing that it was just you three. It was just you, Ben, and Robyn.
Yeah.
I was like, what? How? Like, where are these fucking super people? Like, how? I knew how much it had cost us, and I was like,
I remember the absolute shocked look on your face because you were like, how long have you been open? And like, oh, we're like 4 months, 5 months now. And you were like, what?
Yeah. No, it's crazy.
So
Knowing what goes into something like this, it like you get to understand how much work you guys did. You know, like that was, I think that was the most impressive part. It wasn't that like, I thought that you had found some cheat code or something like that. I was genuinely impressed at how much you were able to do in such a small amount of time. And that's also why I had asked earlier about your like, how well do you think, or how much do you think it was influential that you guys came from a marketing background? Because clearly you guys had a sense for like a brand identity and being able to keep that really tight and to decide how you want it to feel and then stay true to that in all the decisions that you made with the inventory that you carried and even the layout to your store. It was all done so intentionally, and I was very, I don't know, I was very like impressed upon by that.
Thank you.
We definitely we had a lot more help than just the three of us.
We have a huge family.
Yes.
We have a massive family.
Like always, it takes a village.
Yes.
Yeah.
So our mom is actually who the store is named after. Her D&D character is Oddwillow. And so she was always there helping out, and she helped us out directly and indirectly with the vision a lot because we grew up playing games. She is where our love of games came from. And so while we were thinking of kind of what we wanted the store to feel like and how we were going to treat people and what the atmosphere was a mix of like, how would this character do it? But also the way that our mom, like, anybody's welcome in her home. As soon as she meets you, your family. And so that's really how we approach everything else. And then my husband helped out so much getting the shop set up. I think between the time we bought the building and when we opened was about almost exactly a month. And we were there 16 hours a day, every single day.
You guys had your grand opening a month after you bought the building?
I think it was closer to 2.
Was it?
I think it was
Jeez
closer
Louise.
to... Well,
That's
no,
breakneck
maybe not,
speed.
actually.
It was like
a month.
Yeah,
Well,
it was only a month.
So you guys were in there literally burning the midnight oil.
I slept there for a week.
We had air mattresses. We were just there.
Yeah, because it was like, because we built our front counter. I built that with Ben and his dad, and I had to like epoxy the top of the counter. Or it wasn't epoxy, it was like some kind of finish, but I had to sand it and reapply it like every 2 hours.
Yeah.
And so I knew that I needed like tons of coats because the wood was just kind of, I didn't want people getting slivers or whatever.
Sure.
So I slept there for 2 days, and that was all I did for 2 days was work on that counter. Yep. Looking back on it, I have no idea how we did it. Like, I wish I could tell you. Yeah, literally a flamethrower. We have we use this in a presentation. We have a picture of our mom laying on this like dolly that lays flat, and she's laying on a pillow with a scraper, and then I think it's Ben is using a flamethrower on the floor, and she's scraping it up because it was an old post office, and so we found out that the floor had a wax coating on it, so we were trying to get it up with a buffer
after 3 days of different buffers. And why does this keep gumming up the sandpaper?
It's a wax coating. So we're like, okay, well, let's stick a flamethrower to it because that's safe, right? And then
OSHA doesn't count when you own your own business.
No, and then we gave up and spent way too much on carpeting.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, you know, honestly, we had a similar story. You know, like we weren't sure if we were going to do carpeting or if we were going to do tile or if we were going to do
laminate.
Yeah, like a laminate.
Yeah.
And when we came in here, because this was an old board game barrister, so all of the board game barrister squares were still here.
Oh,
so
sure.
like the first 2-3 days that we were here, we were just lifting up those squares.
Just ripping that up.
Yeah, we were just on our haunches all day, just ripping up those squares. And then like there was glue underneath there, a tremendous amount of super, super sticky glue. And so we went out and bought like a degluer, you know, kind of like releasing agent situation, and we almost poisoned ourselves to death. Like that released a lot of chemicals into the air. We had to open up every door, and you know, like it was. And then we, you know, in the end, we decided, you know, let's just get fucking carpet. In
Just
here.
put it back over.
Just save the hassle.
Yeah,
I think knowing what we know now, we just would have done it from the beginning.
For sure.
Because the original vision too, though, for the floor specifically, was we wanted to do like stamped concrete. I think originally,
yes, we were gonna try to like salvage the floor and then go back over and paint it, make it look like wood planks. And after doing like, I think it was like a 2x2 square, like let's see if we can do this, and then looking at the entire rest of the floor, like
building.
Maybe
let's
not.
just do carpet, guys. Like we were just kind of over it at that point.
Yeah, there's a sense for like how, you have to be a visionary to do a store like this. You know, like you have to have an idea, because you guys are aware, because you go to these big events, that for a store to genuinely thrive, not just survive, but to thrive, you need what is called in the industry a UVP.
Yes. Yep.
And
talk about that a lot.
Yeah, for the not enfranchised at home listening, that is a unique value proposition. You need to exist for a reason. You can't just be a copy of something that exists around you, because that already exists around you. So if you want to give people a reason to show up to your store, you need something that's unique about you. And it's a simple concept, but it's a concept that's often overlooked. Now, one of the reasons that the people who succeed in this are the people who have a tendency to be a little bit more imaginative, is because if there's already a lot of stuff that exists in your area, then where are you going to find your UVP? You have to really, have some creativity about you. And so those kinds of people dream big. So we get into these stores, and we've got all these fucking plans, and we've got all these big ideas, and then reality hits us right in the face. He was like, well, that's going to take more time than exists in the day, and it's going to take more money than you have in your pocket. And so you really have to like be pragmatic about the decisions that you make. But I think that's like, that's where you start, like you have these insane ideas, and then you just try to get as close as possible.
Yep.
And then that'll get you there. Speaking of, though, how influential do you think a trade show like GAMA is for you guys?
Oh man, that's a big question. So before we opened,
you guys went to your first GAMA before opening, right?
We did, yeah, because it was, I'm gonna get my years mixed up. I think it was February of 23. Yeah, February 23. We started the business. It was on Ben's birthday, actually. we filed the paperwork for the LLC and sat down and everything. But I was doing some research, and I came across GAMA, and I was reading into it. And
it's so good that you did that research and came across that.
Yeah, it stumbled across it. And I pulled Ben and Robyn into the little makeshift office that we had at the time. And I was like, we need to do this. And I think I had like a list or like a presentation ready of like why we needed to go to GAMA. Do you remember all the bullet points I showed you?
I was very impressed, because Jen is not a list person, and if she ever does make a list, something is either very wrong or she's very excited.
So not to get off on a tangent, but same. I've never really been a list person. I'm more of an intuition guy, if it just feels the right way, I'm going that way,
That's hard. It stresses me out so much.
So same thing with some of my business partners, especially Liz. Liz is not like that at all. Like, Liz wants data. If you're going to move forward with something, please take this seriously. Make sure that we are not misappropriating funds, that we are making sure that we have all of our ducks in a row. And I really appreciate that, because that means that if I have some crazy idea, or if I've got something, because we did that billboard recently.
Yeah.
That was not just you want $8,000 for a billboard? Here you go. Zero. It was.
I'm taking notes on that, by the way. We were just talking about billboards.
I had to really point out why, beat for beat, moment to moment, why this was going to be a good use for those funds. And so it's nice to have that balance.
Yeah.
To have somebody who expects data and somebody who can present data, to just be like, okay, these are good decisions moving forward.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if you do fail, it's like, well, maybe we wouldn't have if we would have just figured it out a little bit more.
Right.
If you don't fail, then cool, whatever. Then my intuition is correct.
Yeah,
but if
pat on back.
It's just nice to have that buffer.
Yeah.
But then you guys decided to go to GAMA then.
Yeah, we did. I think some of it too was we had just gotten a good chunk of our funds, which so Ben and I completely decimated our 401k
Sure.
to open the business.
Yeah.
And I don't recommend that at all, ever. But we were willing.
Yeah, I don't know how much about this I can actually recommend, just generally.
Yeah, generally speaking, like, don't do anything the way we did it. It worked for us, but wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, same.
But
the way we did it, don't do it that way.
Yeah, but like we pulled it all because we were like, you know what, we're all in on this. Like, I would rather lose this money and say that we tried this than not. And so we had just gotten all of those funds in, and it was like, yeah, we'll go to Gamma. Let's go to Vegas. And
it was still in Reno.
Or no, Reno. I'm sorry, it was
you guys
Reno.
did the last year in Reno.
Yeah, and if I have any regret about going to Reno, it's not getting us all first class seats. Because those flights were awful.
Really?
It was like being literally in a can of sardines.
Oh, jeez.
What the last plane we were on was so small. We all three of us sat in the same row, and we're not small people. And
was it one of those like 45-minute flights where it's just like the tiniest
it was
little plane?
The tiniest plane, and it was like Robyn on one side, Ben on the other, and I'm just imagine like
is it like those 2-in-1?
It was like three seats.
Oh,
it was like 3 seats, and there was 2 on one side. And so imagine like having 2 really tight pegs together, and then there's me in the middle, and I have to like tap myself in just to get in the seat.
One of my favorite pictures we have is just the 3 of us crammed in like the back row on the plane, and we're all like.
So, but anyway, off on the tangents, right? No, Reno was incredible, and it was one of those moments where I don't know if it was just so incredible because we were new, and it was like, oh my gosh, eyes big as saucers the whole time, and like, oh man, this is like the coolest stuff ever. We learned so much. We met so many great people who we still talk to and are still friends with today, and who have become our mentors and our peers. But it was the information and the knowledge that we got from Gamma was just invaluable to starting. And
pretty extraordinary what a thing like that will do.
Yeah, and it gave us so much. And if nothing else, it connected us with other stores who had been through that, right? And who were able to give us like advice or thoughts on things that we were doing.
How generously that advice is given to you at Gamma really blew me away.
Yeah,
insane.
It is like nothing else I think we've experienced.
No,
because we've been to other little trade shows, and Gamma is unique. Yeah, like
hundreds of people in your position, and they're all so willing to just tell you everything.
Yeah. I had some. We actually had one of our mentors actually like showed us their sales data. Yep. Like, remember that? Like, we were sitting down in the hall. It was us 3 and then their 3 people. And he literally, the owner literally pulled out his laptop, sat down, and opened up his financials. And he was like, here's what you need to do. Yeah. And I was like, holy crap.
We were really weird the first year that we were, which was this, like, your second year was our first year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When we were there, Quinn and I went, and we were just like, yeah, how did you guys do, your first year in business? Real sheepishly, you know, like, I don't, necessarily need you to. And they're like, oh, yeah, we did exactly this, like just the most what you would normally think are private numbers. They were so open about it. They're just like, no, this is what we invested. This is what we made. This is what we paid ourselves, what we paid our employees. I was like, holy shit, dude. Like, okay. What more do you want to talk about?
Yeah, and everybody is like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's some people who will keep some stuff close to their chest, like special sauce kind of things. Right. But like
even that's few and far between.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who are there specifically to share special sauce.
Yes. Yep. And which is crazy. Like, all of the seminars and the education that they have is just incredible. And knowing how much effort goes into those presentations and just how much information and how willing people are to talk to you after that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna apply to do a seminar next year. So you guys have been doing them. That's very, very cool.
Transitioning from going to being in the seminars and looking at these people and like, wow, they're amazing, and seeing them as mentors, to going to doing the presentations and seeing these people who guided you and were so influential now as peers, and then looking out at the crowd and then having those people come back to you and go, your presentation changed the way I'm going to run my business. We did one this last year on working with your neurodivergence. And
I remember I talked to you right before you were about to go do that one.
Oh my God, it was insane. And so many people came up to us and are still messaging us and emailing us about how it affected them and helped them understand how to do things better, whether it's for themselves or with their employees.
Right.
And it was really bizarre.
That was a wild ride with that one.
Yeah.
Because we had presented, not this past year, but the year before, we had done a seminar just on Oddwillows. Like they had just
kind of how we did it.
Yeah, for new retailers. And then at Origins that same year, I did my mentoring presentation, which I didn't really change for Gamma because it was still all relevant stuff. But then we decided to do 4.
I don't know what you mean we.
You approved the list. You approved the list.
You signed off on this.
Yeah, she did. Now, I will say that we submitted 7 seminars, and they went, no, you only want to do 4. And
you guys submitted 7 seminars?
7.
Dude, so the Living World was at 70 players when the registration thing came out for do you want to submit a seminar? And I was like, is this really a thing I should teach yet? You know, like I was like a little imposter syndrome-y about it, where I was just like, maybe there's more qualified people. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then later on, it grew to 80, and then I was like a little bit more confident that maybe I was doing this in a unique way.
Well, and I think what you do is really interesting and unique. Like because
the more people I talk to about it at Gamma specifically, because like I know like locally it's hard to see anything similar.
Right.
But when you go to a place where there's a national pool of people and all of them are going, no, what you're doing is fucking unique, dude. Like that's when I'm just like, okay, all right, I should tell more people about this.
Yeah, and I think so, because like that is I have not, from anyone we've ever talked to, like I've not heard of anyone doing what you're doing.
Not at all.
So it's awesome, and I definitely think you need to talk about it more.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I am going to put a little disclaimer in the seminar that I run, because somebody asked me, dude, are you okay? And I'm just like, no, dude, I had a mental breakdown. Like it definitely is more work than you'd expect.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it is like if you organize yourself well and if you've got a good relationship with work going into it, and I want to touch on that a little bit later down the line.
Yeah.
I want to, because we were, even just before this, we were talking a little bit about burnout.
Yeah.
And I want to, like, as business owners, you guys know that when you give your everything to something, you need to have a real good boundary. You need to have a really solid line between what is things you're doing for work and things you're doing for health. And you cannot convince yourself that one is the other, because that really will end up hurting you. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about Gamma. So you guys are 2 women business owners. Mm-hmm. That is, in our industry, not completely rare, but less common.
Yes.
Certainly less common. And I've spoken a lot about recently, and am very aware of the fact that there has been one demographic for 50 years that was tabletop gamers. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And only, I'd say, in the last, generously speaking, maybe 7 or 8 years, has it started to shift.
Yes.
And it shifts more and more, and you see the representation more and more, both in our communities and at places like Gamma, where, you know, like retailers are all together, and you go, oh, hey, okay, there's a lot of non-white males, you know?
Yeah.
But certainly less. You know, it's still a very skewed demographic. So, given when you started your business, do you feel like you had particularly uphill struggles based on being women in this field? Or do you feel like, no, you know?
I feel like yes, we had some struggles, but I feel like in a lot of ways it was also an advantage for us.
Okay.
Because obviously there's the struggles that we faced were more from within the industry of
and financially too.
And financially, like kind of more on the back end of things,
right,
where
just women aren't treated
exactly
super equal.
Getting the financing, finding the building, even talking to reps from different distributors is treated so differently.
Yeah.
But with our focus of being a place that's safe for people who don't know games, and you're not going to feel judged for coming in, and for families and
for community building.
Exactly.
It was pretty good.
And reaching our big focus is to be inclusive for minorities within the gaming industry.
Right.
So I feel like
which I love, by the way.
Thank you.
Like that is so what I was saying before, it's like there's this mentality I think where I think people think it's enough to just not push people away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't think that that's enough.
No.
Because
not at all.
it's kind of, I don't know, it just doesn't, if you've lived your entire life feeling unwelcome, you are not going to feel welcome from ambivalence.
Correct.
You're going to feel welcome by being welcomed, by specifically being pointed out and going, you're cool here.
Yep.
Because otherwise, you're going to assume you're not. Because forever, you've not been. You know? Yep. So I feel like there's this mentality where it's just like, well, it's not like we're mean to these people. Okay. But that's not enough, dude.
Yeah.
You know, like you really have to go out of your way to let people know that there is a safe and welcoming place for them. Mm-hmm. And you guys really made sure that was a part of your ethos from the beginning.
Yeah, because that was a core value. Like, and that was when we set out the business, we had, I think it was like 4 core values. And I have a picture somewhere of what those values were.
I was going to say, good luck remembering them.
Yeah, I know. But the main one that we've always stuck to is that everybody is welcome, and specifically minorities in the gaming industry. And that's what drove the design of the store too. You know, we wanted to make sure that everything was chest height or lower, so people in mobility devices didn't need help if they didn't want it. Right. You know, and the same with our aisles. We made them extra wide, and our play space takes up more space because we made those aisles extra wide, you know, so people didn't have to like squeeze or squish together to be there.
For us, it was kind of a common sense, of course, we're going to do this thing. But I didn't really realize how big of a deal it was until that neurodivergent seminar, because we were talking about it. And I told everyone that we designed our store to be modular, so all of our fixtures are on wheels and stuff, so we can adjust our space. And I told everyone when we reset the store,
I wish we would have had that forethought. We have moved a lot of very heavy stuff around a lot of times.
That was a piece of advice that we took away from Gamma.
But I told everyone when we reset and we put our aisles and everything back, I walk around with a tape measure out and I set it to 40 inches, and I walk through every space in every aisle and just make sure that it's safe. And everyone in that room applauded. Yeah. And I was like, this just not feels like what you should do. Like certain people can't get through here. And it should just be common decency to make sure everyone can enjoy your store. And in a lot of ways, we also almost sometimes literally hold people's hands walking through the store. We greet every person that comes in. If it's their first time, I give them what I call the 5-cent tour. And I explain where everything is.
The very first time that I walked in, you were the first person that greeted me, and we walked around for quite a little bit. Yes. You were telling me all about stuff, and I was just like, this is such a welcoming atmosphere, you know?
Yeah, and we do that with everybody.
Every single person.
So, yeah, we talked with some customers and walked them through a bunch of different games and stuff for like 2 hours yesterday.
Oh, yeah. It was fun. They found us through TikTok, and it was her birthday. It was their first time in, and we spent about 2 hours. And we're explaining different kinds of dice to them, showing them different board games, helping them find games that their 2-year-old could even enjoy. Maybe not quite fully play, but enjoy.
Yeah. That were similar to games that they had played that they loved. Yes. And, you know, and it's touches like that make things different, right? And it takes a lot more time, you know, and we're very conscientious.
It's a lot more work.
Exactly.
And I think one of the reasons that the people who would require more work to in franchise don't get that level of attention is because you don't want to do that much work. You just, you know, that's a lot for what, you know, like I feel like that's the mentality. It's not even out of like, I don't like those people. It's like, do I really want to do all that effort for 1 or 2 more people? Like, you know, like that's kind of like the prevailing thought.
Right. And we see that a lot because there's always that, those 1 or 2 people don't matter. Or,
I'm going to move my entire store around for the one person that's going to come in here in a wheelchair. You know, like that's kind of the mentality.
Well, and too, like that we've always been hard workers, you know, and I think for us it made sense, but we wanted to nurture people, right? Because we wanted to create we went in knowing we wanted to create long-lasting customers, instead of just kind of like I found you on Google, I just wanted to stop in,
Right.
you know. And so we wanted to make sure that the people who came to the store came back. And
Right.
so that drove a lot of what we did and why we did it.
Yeah, I think we've mentioned this, or I've mentioned this to you guys before. We've talked about this in the past, but there is a difference, I think, between. I don't know if it was necessarily COVID that did it, because this mentality has existed since I was working in cell phones, because cell phones kind of have this mentality. Yeah. And certainly by the time that I was at Games Workshop, there was already the expectation. In fact, Games Workshop was very proud that they had kind of like pioneered this idea. And you only see it increasing in our industry, but it is this difference between what is an old school style storefront retail and what is this new philosophy around experiential retail.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, we did talk for a long time about that.
Yeah. And like storefront retail is what you're talking about, where like people Google you, I need a board game, they show up, they buy the board game, they leave. That's not building community. That is, you need a thing? Well, I sell the thing, so if you want to come in, I'll sell you the thing, and then goodbye. Where we don't have that mentality. Our mentality, you guys have seen this store.
Oh, yeah.
It is not built to be storefront, you know? We have retail, but it is a very small retail footprint compared to how much hanging out footprint we have. When you go to places like Gamma, that's why not everything works for everyone.
Right.
Because if you go to Gamma, they're just like, well, you got to really make sure that your square footage, you know, your money per square footage is like really working for you and it's turning. Right. Mm-hmm. And like, if somebody walks in here, I've had other business owners in our industry come in here and they go, I don't know how you're making this work, dude. You're a lot of dead space in here. Yeah. And that's not how I see it, because our mentality is a lot more community-driven and hangout-driven, third-place-driven, where we want you to have an experience here that is positive. We want you to enjoy this place as a place that you don't have to be at home or don't have to be at work. You can just kind of be in a cool place where you want to hang out.
Yeah.
That's a lot more fucking intention and work and like design and forethought. And it's not necessarily making you money specifically. But maybe, you know, because of that desire to have community.
It goes beyond them being your customer and really goes to having a connection with people. We had our community is insane in the best way. It really is.
They're the best.
They support us so wholly and are just so about the store that we joke that it's almost a cult at this point.
Yeah.
We've had people come in on their wedding day, after their ceremony, on their way to their honeymoon, and the first stop they made was at the store.
I love that.
Because we do something called a juju tracker, where we're keeping track of who of the staff has the best luck with card pulls. Like if you pick
That's such a cool idea.
It's so much fun, but it gets everybody in on it. So they were like, we want to try the luck. And like, it's the wedding day, it's got to be lucky. And then a few months later, we had some of our regulars who've gotten really close to our heart and almost family approach us, and they're like, we want to get married next week.
Yeah.
Can we do it here? And we're like, no shit.
Whoa.
No shit. And we're like, yeah, okay. So we closed early on a Sunday because we close earlier on Sundays.
That's so cool.
It was amazing. I went and I took their pictures at a local park.
I have to show you
And then we came back to the store. We moved all of the fixtures out of the way. We had the big open center for them to have the ceremony.
Yeah.
Everybody stood in a circle while they said, it was like the ceremony itself was like 5 minutes.
Sure.
And then we set the tables out to be these big family style tables. We did dinner and dancing, and
that's incredibly special.
Amazing. And to be so wholly part of their lives forever.
Yeah.
It's a connection that
they let you in.
Yeah.
Speaks volumes of the space that you created.
It's crazy too, because it's just like, it's one of those things you like never expect. Like we transformed like the whole store.
So cool.
It's just one of those things where sorry, I'm trying not to like get super teary-eyed right now.
Yeah, right, for sure.
Talking about
even I was just like, oh, Jesus.
I know,
emotional.
Right? It's one of those things where we opened the store and we wanted to make just this cool, like, inviting space.
Right.
And it turned into being something that was just so much bigger than us in our original vision. And how it, I'm so sorry, how it change people's lives, and how many people have told us that it's changed their lives for one reason or another.
The fastest way to make either of us cry
is
to start telling us how the store has impacted them.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
We get phone calls from like moms and grandmas in the community. Like, I just want to thank you for being open.
Jeez.
One of my favorite memories, actually pulled a security camera footage for it, was this lady had called, and basically her grandson came in regularly, and he was kind of a socially awkward kid, and so she was just happy we were there. And I was just sobbing in the middle of the store on the phone with this lady, and our regulars came out of a D&D game in the back room, and they saw me crying.
Yeah.
And they immediately went into this like guard dog mode, and they were all standing around me, and I'm like, no, it's okay, it's good tears.
Right.
And we have so many people that just it feels surreal.
Yeah. To have a customer pull you aside and say, your store gave my son a reason to live.
Oh, jeez.
Is like, it's intense.
Yeah.
You know, and it's crazy.
You know, it's interesting how so like I've been aware of this since I was at Games Workshop, but I absolutely accepted and took seriously the idea that when you are at the head of something like this, you do become a community leader. You know, in whatever way that manifests, you do become a community leader.
Yeah.
And that comes with it, whether it's something you want or don't want, it comes with it with responsibility.
Yes.
You know, you are curating a space where hundreds, sometimes thousands of people go to feel happy.
Yep.
You know, to feel welcome, to feel safe, to feel joy. And if you don't curate that with responsibility, you can put a lot of people in a negative situation.
Yeah.
But if you do curate that with responsibility, you can change people's lives.
Yeah.
Because and it's not even like a, you know, I don't know, like I changed your life. You know, like it's not even, it's that finding a real cool place like this, it's rare. It's rare. It, you know, like it doesn't exist. Think of another place outside of a game store. Think of another place that exists where you just go and hang out with a bunch of cool people and do things that you like. That's fucking what? Like, what does that even mean? And for you to be, now you're responsible for that.
Yes.
Like you are building that. When it comes back to you, you know, like I've had touching moments, you know, like there are some people who have come up to me and said, I've never felt safer at a different in a different store, you know? And that to me is insane. You know, like for somebody to say that to me, I've never felt more welcome. You know, like that, it's responsibility. You go, yeah, well I'm thankful and don't look at me because I'll cry, you know?
Yeah.
But like also it makes me so happy that it's working, because it's a lot of time. It's a lot of time and it's a lot of effort and it's a lot of focus. And it's a lot of sleepless nights.
It's a lot of mental load.
Yeah, it's a huge mental load. And so those are almost the moments, and it's like cathartic, when somebody goes up to you and goes, that your work is being appreciated, where it's just like, oh, fuck, you know, like like you just immediately start crying because it's it was
always
worth
at those moments where you're like, God, this is just the worst week ever, and I need something to remind me that I'm doing this for a reason. And then someone just has this like heartfelt 2-minute speech, and you're like sobbing in the corner.
This is why we're doing it.
You're like, you have no idea how much I need this right now. I'll be right back. I have to go.
I just need to go cry for a second. Hold on.
Oh, man. Yeah, and it always comes at those moments where it's been an awful week. It's like everything that could go wrong has gone wrong, and you just want to go to bed. And they'll come up, and I have full on ugly cried in front of customers before. Yep. Like, I've had to excuse myself, like hiccuping, like snotting down the face. You know, because it is those moments, and you kind of live for those moments. Yeah,
well, it makes a lot of this worth it. Like, obviously, you can't just get in for this. In fact, you guys know this probably better, you know, than the people who will be listening to this podcast. But you don't get into this for the money. You know,
no.
This will pay your bills, especially if you if you really work at it. This will pay your bills, and maybe if you do it in some way that I'm just not imagining, you can retire off it.
Yes,
maybe
if you're really lucky.
I have not figured out how that's going to work for us, but the idea is maybe you can retire off it. But so you can't get into this to make money. You're not going to be a rock star doing this.
No, and I think that's a super common like misconception.
Right.
Like, and going back to kind of why some of these businesses fail is there's there's a perception, and it's going in with some realism, right?
Yeah.
That, oh, I'm just going to turn these games over,
Right.
you know, and I'm going to make a ton of money.
I'm going to buy games, and I'm going to sell those games, and I'm going to make so much money.
Yeah.
It's going to be so cool.
No. like
You're
yes.
going to make a lot of, first of all, you're going to make a lot
no.
of bad decisions on how you manage your inventory.
Oh my God.
Oh, Marvel dagger.
Yeah. Why do you think we have 30% off board games, by the way, if anybody's hearing this, please buy our board game.
But yeah, because you have to make mistakes, right? Because as humans in general, we learn from our mistakes more than we do our rewards.
Right.
And
Because
so
rewards, those can be tricky.
Exactly.
That can be false data.
Exactly.
A mistake, that's a lot more real data.
Yeah, it's a lot more realistic, and so it's a lot more hardcore. It hits harder, and so you have to learn. Like, there were things that we were warned about, and we were like, nah, we know better. And it's like, no, we
dude, I got
don't. No, we don't. Yeah, and you know, so like there's a lot of things that like I look back on in our first year of business, and I'm like,
Yeah.
probably should have done that different.
But you know, there's so much, you know, we talk about reality. The people who tend to think that they've got this idea for this cool space that they want to build, a lot of times those people are also maybe stubborn in a way that, you know, like, just like, no, you don't understand my vision. And then you do it and you go, oh, I didn't understand my vision, actually. You know, like you get into it and you go, fuck, reality is kind of tough.
Why do you have to call me out like that?
Just add us next
Like, I know.
You know, like, you know, because we're in the same boat. You know, like we have this cool idea, and sometimes you get your wins. You know, sometimes you really do figure it out, and you're just like, fuck, I was right. Shit, that's so cool, and you're gonna keep going with it. But a lot of times, a lot more times than the times that you succeed, you have an idea, and then you go, oh, I was stupid for thinking this would ever work. You know, and that's just reality. This business is a business of making mistakes and then learning from them as much as possible, which is why I like Gamma so much, because when you talk to those people, they've made 1,000 mistakes too.
Yep.
You know, and they're so willing to. There was a whole seminar given up
Yes.
what mistakes not to make early on, you know?
Yeah, and I wish I had gone to that one, but
That's something I've always, when I'm talking to other new game stores and they ask for advice or like, what would you do? I always tell people to sign up for Gamma and go to the convention, because we went before we opened. And my little catchphrase for it is, we got to learn from everybody else's mistakes before we made them.
Right.
And it was such a huge impact of, there are definitely things we didn't listen to.
Right.
But so much of what we did, and we're like, okay, we thought we were going to do this, but like 80% of people said this was going to fail, so let's try and change it.
yeah, let's make a different plan for this. Or there were a lot of things that we learned at Gamma where we had gone in with like a preconceived notion of how we were going to do something, and then it changed completely because of advice and like the seminars that we had seen. And
in all of the changes that we made, it was never like, we're not going to do this thing.
Right.
As much as...
No, it's almost like you're problem solving it.
Yeah, we're going to figure
exactly.
out how we're still going to do this thing.
Right.
But not fuck it up like they did. Okay,
Right.
how do we do that?
Well, and we do that all the time between the two of us, too.
Oh my God, so much.
And
Having a sounding board is huge.
Yeah. And it gets us into fights sometimes.
Sure.
Because
Well, and as sisters, too. I imagine
Yeah.
that's a little bit... It's interesting how you talk to business partners compared to the way that you talk to your siblings.
Yeah.
You know, like my brother and I. So I have a brother who's my age relatively. He's 2 years younger than me. And sometimes I talk to him, and suddenly we're fighting. And I'm like, where did that happen? You know?
Yeah, when did that happen? Yeah. I think we have the benefit of having worked together before.
Yeah.
And so we know how each other work, and we really learned how each of us individually works and how we function. And we talked about this in the neurodivergence seminar that we gave, because there are things that I do really well, and there are things that I don't do well at all.
Sure.
And there are things that Robyn does very, very well that I don't do well with.
Right.
You know, and vice versa. And so we try to take things that are our strengths.
Right.
And we try to run with those.
You know, it's very interesting how there's no place for pride in this business. You need to be honest.
It is so humbling.
Right. You need to be honest about what you're good at and what you're not. And if your business partners are good at that, then don't be rude about that.
Yeah.
Be thankful
Yep.
that you, like, I am not a numbers person. 0. If you start to talk to me about numbers, I will have smoke coming out of my ears. Yeah. Literally, that's just not the way that my brain has ever thought.
Yeah.
So thank God that Liz is around where I could just be like, hey, does this make sense numbers-wise?
Right.
Because intuitively it does. But my brain is mush, and I know that I'm not thinking about this correctly. And I hope that that it's like a reciprocated feeling where, like, they know that I'm good at some things and that they can come to me for, like, just because my brain works a little different. But you have to be honest about that. You can't just be like, nah, I got this. Like, 0, dude.
Yeah.
If you don't got this, you need to say that I don't got this. Otherwise, you are going to fail.
Yep. Well, and that's really interesting. It's actually really interesting and really topical because we just had a conversation recently about this kind of stuff. Because I am a self-admitted control freak, right? And I have, severe anxiety, severe ADHD, bipolar disorder, all kinds of stuff. And so when things start going to hell, I personally start going to hell. I have to control everything. I have to know everything that's going on. I have to do it all myself, and then nothing gets done because I have too much on my plate.
Right.
And it is
the classic.
Exactly.
Neurodivergent cocktail.
Right, exactly. And so, and it is something that has been really hard for me to work through, and definitely has affected, how you perceive me and how other people perceive me. But not just that, but like how it affects our working relationship and stuff. And so it's really humbling, and it when stuff like that comes up, taking a step back and having to really take a look at yourself and a hard look at yourself and what you're doing that is destroying or affecting, other people is real tough.
Oh,
it's hard, right? You spend days in bed crying about it, because, it's like, I swear to God, I'm not an asshole, you guys. I just, but it's hard.
Self-reflection is tough for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
It's I mean, I don't know. It's an enormous sign of emotional maturity when you can be self-reflective. Mm-hmm. When you can just go, hey, I'm fucking up. Sorry about that. Like that. It takes so much to just be like, I could have done this better. Sorry about that. Like that. Yeah. Those words are some of the toughest words for people.
Yeah. And it's hard too, because pride gets in the way.
Right.
And it's...
And this is the most humbling situation to be in. Because your pride will sink your business if you let it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's getting out of your own way. That's really hard. And I'm still learning that, and Robyn...
an interesting thing that you need to have is trust.
Yes.
You gotta trust the people around you.
I know this is a podcast and you can't see the face I'm making.
I have learned that this business is only going to survive if I can trust my business partners. Mm-hmm. That's the only way that it's going to survive.
Yeah.
Because it's too big a ship. There's too many moving parts.
Yes.
And I can't do them all. I'd like to do them all. I have my ideas how we should do them all, but I can't do them all. Realistically, I cannot. I am up to my fucking eyeballs with the living world and the marketing. And now I'm also doing podcasts.
Yes.
I just threw in another thing. And so I'm not going to think about how we're doing the ordering. I'm not going to think about how we're doing the buy-sell trade. I'm not going to think about how we're doing the leagues or the tournaments or the boba or whatever. I can't. Because I'd like to.
Yeah.
But I can't. And so what am I going to just worry all the time that all of these things are going to fail and that my little 20% is the only thing being done right? No, that'll eat me alive.
Right.
I have to trust. And so sometimes I'll look at a sheet of paper that has some numbers that to me don't make any fucking sense. And then I go, you know what? That is literally none of my fucking business. And then that's it. I just don't keep thinking about it because it isn't.
Yeah.
There are capable human beings doing that, and I trust that they are doing that to the best of their abilities. And if they can't do it, well, then we're going to fail because I can't do it. And so where is there's no space for worry.
Yep.
You either can do it and then do it, or admit that you can't do it and then trust. And then that's it.
Yeah.
Those are your two options. And so I just choose to trust, and I live a lot more comfortably now, you know?
Yeah, and that is something, and like I've always trusted Robyn, like, you know, she's my sister, and till the day I die.
Sometimes I just have to beat her over the head and
a little bit.
Remember that you trust me.
Yeah.
Well, and there's part of me too. It's that you know, ADHD spicy. Like I just have to know what's going on.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
just to know what's going on. Not even necessarily to like have an input. I just want to know what's happening.
Right.
Yeah, I just need, I need to be like Ryan. But you know, and I know it's frustrating for you sometimes when you're just trying to get something done and I'm like, wait, what does that mean? What are you doing? What is
like
that?
I just got off a 40-minute phone call with one of the DMs, and she's like, "Well, what did he say?" And I was like, "I need to go put this stuff down. Like, don't worry about it. You have the ordering you're doing. Go do that."
Dang it. You know, and it's and I'm trying to get better about it, you know, but it is definitely a problem that I have.
Yeah.
And you know, because
And it's also sometimes good to have a second pair of eyes on something.
Yeah, oh,
so
yeah,
It's not
always.
like I'm never asking them. Sometimes
Yeah.
I go, hey, does this make sense? You know, like,
Yes.
and if it does, cool, because I don't know as much as you do, so
Yep.
bet. But does it make sense? And even just like having to rethink about a thing, I feel like is healthy sometimes, you know?
yeah.
It's a rubber ducky.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and I'm just putting myself on blast here. Like, this whole
It's become very
podcast.
self-deprecating.
I know. No, it's okay though. Well, because it's, you know, it's one of those things too where it's like, I think just as an aside, I think that sometimes people and customers think we're infallible, right? Because it looks like we have our shit together.
Right.
And I know, it looks like it does because we've painted this very pretty picture.
Right.
And we have all of these like curtains and screens and like, look at all of this.
Yeah.
But
a lot
really,
of work has been done
Yes.
to make it look good.
but when you open up the back room, it's fucking falling apart. Like there's
That's why
shit
I always
everywhere.
say, do you want to know how the sausage is made? Because
Yeah.
you don't want to know what the sausage is
No,
made.
no.
The sausage is disgusting. It's
Yeah.
it's really bad in that room. But sausage tastes great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, I think it's important just to talk about the struggles because we're human.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and it's easy for
Dude.
people to think that, you know, you're not,
Yeah.
or to view you just as like this fixture or this pillar and then get mad at you when something doesn't go perfectly.
Dude, I had, not last year, but the year before, we did a game here
Okay.
that I was making up on the spot. And it was, so I won't go too deep into it on the podcast because, well, I don't want to call myself out for potential copyright reasons. But there was this idea that I had to run a game in store that could be very fun and very interactive, very immersive. And a lot of customers thought, yeah, actually that sounds super cool. And I was just like, bet, let's do it. So we started playing this game, and I was kind of making the rules up as we went, and I was designing these things, and the game got very big very fast, and people were really into it. They were here literally from the, like, there were people, I haven't experienced this since. There were people in the parking lot before we even opened, just waiting for me to open so that we could start playing this game. And so I would get here like 8 in the morning with fresh prints from Office Max, cutting on the fucking thing, you know, just preparing for what this was going to be. And because I was kind of making it up as I went, you know, like in retrospect, this is why games aren't done this way. This is why you do a lot of product testing and game testing before you launch it, right? But, you know, like here I am, naive, and my store is new, and I'm like, well, I can do whatever in my store. Let's just do whatever we want, you know? Let's be as creative and imaginative as possible.
Yeah.
And I started getting a lot of feedback about ways that we could improve the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And the feedback wasn't always gentle. And it was a lot of it. And it was very enthusiastic. And I was already pretty burnt up doing the game.
Yeah.
And suddenly I was getting a lot of feedback about why it wasn't fun.
Sure.
And that really was difficult. It was really difficult because I feel like what you were just saying, people forget you're a person.
Yep.
People forget it's just a dude who's in here at 8 in the morning trying his fucking hardest. You know? The product didn't come from a committee. The product came from a person who stayed up all night trying real hard.
Yeah.
And then, and you gotta just keep that in mind when you have communication with these people, because we look like we've got our shit together, and we look like we've got all this like resources and funding and pre-thought, but really, it's just people. It's just people that are really just trying.
Yeah.
So, so have some grace, because being on the other end of that is really tough. You know, like being on the other end of that is like, hey, man, please.
It is. Yeah, and we've had our share of people who hate us.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it's interesting because and some of it,
it's obvious because everyone has their haters.
Yeah.
But it's surprising.
Yeah,
for you guys, because you seem so like welcome.
And they hate us. Some of them hate us because of that.
Well,
I think that's kind of the majority of it is people who don't fully understand that.
They don't rock with the whole this game is for everybody vibe.
Yeah. And I've gotten it was last Gamma. I was, and this isn't like Gamma as a whole, right? There's individual people who are there or who are visiting, not in an official capacity, but like a staff member or whatever, but just people, other retail store owners. Right. And I remember sitting down, and I was sitting at lunch and having a conversation with another retail store owner or a retail store manager, I think. And then the owner came over, and immediately the owner was like, "Oh, I know you."
Oh,
I'm like, "Oh no.
What
hell?
Is
this?" And it was this conversation that was just really the manager trying to pick my brain about how we do ordering and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then the retail store owner sat down and was like slapping the table, like grilling me on like if I knew all the different dice manufacturers in China, which I know the companies that produce in China.
Name 3 of their songs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So much.
And it was really like super aggressive, and like they just it was just a lot of hate for just the way we act sometimes or how open we are. Because I think to some people, and I've been told this too, that us being as open and welcoming, because it's just our personalities, right? We're just very like, oh my God, hi, kind of people, because that's how we were raised, right? Our mom, we go back to our mom, she was like that. She adopted literally everybody. I think at this point she's got like 40 children.
Every single one of them calls her Nani.
Yeah. And so, we're just very open, and we try to be kind people. And I think to some people it comes off as being insincere.
Yes.
Interesting.
If they're not used to it or for whatever reason.
I don't know, dude. Like, honestly, that also could be sexism.
Yes. Well, yeah. There's
like,
some of that too.
I have had a lot of haters, right? But I've never had that kind of interaction where someone's just like, "Oh yeah, prove your like the fuck."
Yeah.
But like, I'm a guy, like there's a weird different presence between guys and guys.
Oh yeah, it is constant.
But it's also my favorite thing too. Especially when the particularly like overly cocky guys come in the store as customers, and they're like trying to act like they know everything, and you just drop like one or two things that it's completely way above their heads, and you see this like look of like, oh, I don't know what to talk on that, and I'm like, yeah, you don't, fuck you.
That's gross, dude. That's gross behavior.
Yeah,
it is.
Well, I have one of my managers that trained me a long time ago, and these words, I swear to God, they were like some of the most influential words that I've ever received in a training capacity. But he said to me, and everybody kind of interprets this a different way, but he said this to me, and it affected me. He said, "You get the community you deserve."
Yes,
and
absolutely.
And a lot of people will just like, "Oh, what do you mean? Like I got to curate, blah blah blah." And I'm just like, no. Whatever you tolerate, those people will come to you.
Yep.
And if you tolerate bad behavior, you will get that
bad behavior.
Yeah, that's
No, that's so true. I mean, unbelievably true, because
that really hit like in the soul.
Yeah. Because
sometimes people will be like, okay, well, fuck you, and then they'll walk away.
Yep.
And you're just like kind of good,
Yeah.
Like I don't want people like that here. So all right, and like as a business owner, you know that like new customer acquisition kind of is the make or break for your business. But you have to allow the bad or the people who don't interact with you well to not continue to interact with you.
Right.
And that's sometimes hard, I guess. And
I know you can talk a lot more about this, because I know you deal a lot more
the bad
directly
guy.
with. Yeah, she's the bad guy. I like another
Jen
one
can't
of my.
stand to tell people.
No, it's another one of those toxic traits that I'm trying to. I don't even know that it's toxic
It's
so
the
much as I'm
oldest
just
sibling. Like you have to. Be people pleaser.
I have to please everybody. I have to be like.
I was also there. Yep. Like I'm the eldest sibling. It's really
trying to cater to make sure that everybody's feeling good and
Yeah.
something innate about that. But at some point in my professional development, I really took to heart that sometimes you just have to draw that line.
Yeah.
You have to
Sometimes
draw
you
a
have
line.
to be the dick.
I'm
Yeah.
getting better.
You are. I'm very proud of you. You told a cold call no the other day.
Usually, I fully admitting, putting myself on blast here. Robyn is my bad guy because it makes me cry.
It's just like, no, I'll be right back.
Exactly.
Just go
No,
sob.
literally, I will literally have a panic attack because I had to tell somebody no. It's so bad.
Yeah.
I've gotten better about it over the years, and especially through like my professional career. But I still am like, oh, it's a cold call here, Robyn. Because I just can't.
Out of the two of us, I think I'm definitely more the enforcer for both for stuff like that of just telling people no and don't waste my time because fuck you. But also with the code of conduct and stuff in the store. If somebody's doing
It's so
something,
important.
luckily we've built such an environment that our community, for one, enforces our code of conduct so much more than we do.
And they police themselves.
Yeah.
It's insane to see this room full of 48 TCG players in an extremely competitive game start getting a little too rowdy, and one of them yells from across the room, "Halflings!" Because Rule 8 of our code of conduct is mind the halflings, and it's basically we're a family-friendly store, don't swear.
Right.
But then there's been a couple RPG players where I had to have a one-on-one with them and tell them basically, like, look, this behavior is not okay. You've got to reel it back.
Right.
Sometimes they just take it on the chin. Sometimes they push back a little bit, and I've got to be the bad guy and like, no, this is not okay.
Correct. Yeah.
And then
for everybody to have a
yeah.
good experience,
Yeah.
you may need to have a less good experience.
Yes.
You know, like if you are looking for a very specific thing that only makes you happy and makes everybody else unhappy, I'm sorry, but you can't do that here.
One of the hardest ones, too, is actually really recently. We have a campaign that's been running basically almost since we opened, and the players have been consistent in it every week, and one of them came into the campaign, and as I was checking him in, I realized that I smelled alcohol in his breath.
Yeah.
And we're completely, like, no alcohol in store.
Zero.
You can't be intoxicated.
Right.
And as I was checking him in, he was slurring his speech a little bit, and he's one of my... same thing as mother. I definitely don't have favorite children, but definitely one of the customers I really love. Yeah. And so I went back and forth.
You told me about it, and I think our first reaction was concern.
Yes, because he's not the kind of person to do that kind of thing.
Right.
And so the immediate thought was something is wrong.
Right.
And so I kind of cued the DM in, and I let him know, I was like, I just keep an eye on him for a minute, and I'm kind of concerned about sending him home, because if he drove, I want him to be safe.
Right.
But so I found out he was walking home, and so I pulled him aside, and I told him, like, you're not in trouble this time,
Right.
but you can't be here, right? And he's like, yeah, and he owned up to it fully.
Yeah.
And I told him, and I didn't push too hard, because usually when someone's drinking and going out publicly, it's not always great.
Yeah, worst situation to do that. Yeah.
So I was like, if you ever need to talk, we are here, and if you need anything. And he almost started crying, and he gave me a little fist bump, and he's like, I'm gonna make up an excuse and I'll go home, and I'm sorry. I was like, it's not a problem, it's okay, just we're here.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because you can still be the enforcer and be the bad guy without being the bad guy.
And have compassion and empathy for human beings.
Well, right, because like we all just want to be understood and seen, right? And so for someone to come in like that, like there's got to be something going on, right? And our first reaction wasn't just, oh, this is shitty behavior and to be angry. It was just genuine concern,
or to make it your business.
Exactly.
It's just, hey, if something's going on and I can help, happy to help.
Yeah.
Yeah, but because we have, and I think it was a team night too, and so like that made it doubly like, hey,
because that
was
it's a lot more specific with you guys, or a lot more like you got to have a lot more focus on it with you guys, because you are such a family friendly store.
Yeah.
Like, not that we're not friendly to families, but like our core demographic is like I was telling you this before, is like 25 to 40 year olds. Yeah. So like because of that, we don't self regulate so much in those aspects. We still maintain a heavy level of respect here, and a heavy level of openness, and a heavy level of being welcoming to people that are generally marginalized. We make sure that that's happening. But when it comes to things like swearing, we're not so like focused on that, because they're generally there are not a lot of kids in here.
Yeah. And I think our demographic is huge. Like, I wish I could.
Super wide.
I wish I could nail it down, but like any day you walk in there, it's going to be different. Like, because
I mean, it's a smaller town demographic, you know? Like, you're just trying to get everybody in there. You know?
Yeah. And I know that, like, especially we have a lot of homeschoolers too. Who come
really?
in. Yeah. And to make that space safe for them. There is a level that we have to maintain, and we talked about it earlier. That, it's our responsibility,
right.
to maintain that level of protection for people, who are visiting and stuff, and making sure the community feels safe and good about where they're at.
Yeah.
So,
with all of that being said, we've talked a lot about what goes into this whole situation, right? Now I want to talk to you guys about burnout. Okay?
Yeah.
So, what is your relationship with your downtime now, and why is that where you're at with it?
We are actually in an interesting spot with that.
I saw your post recently. Actually, you had posted that a little bit earlier on your Discord, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We post. So yeah.
So I remember I saw the announcement go up on your Discord like a week ago, and then I just saw it posted yesterday on your Facebook.
So we're going back to close one day a week. We wanted to make sure that before we went fully public with it, we had all the scheduling kinks and everything worked out, because 2 out of our 3 employees either have other jobs or they have D&D commitments or other stuff. So we had to make sure we could make the schedule work like that. But it came from right after Gamma, and like Jen was saying a little bit ago, we had a few very difficult conversations recently, and her and I had to sit down and basically go, we are killing ourselves. We are so beyond what our capacity is right now, and not only just for ourselves, but for our families. And one of the big reasons we did this to begin with was to be able to be with our family, to be able to control our schedule, to be able to have the kids at the store and let them have fun and all that kind of stuff. And kind of taking a step away from everything and looking on it we're so far removed from that at this point. Our families are suffering and we need to do something about it. And we had previously been closed on Tuesdays, just because it was a really slow day for us. There wasn't much reason to be open. And then
some of the too, just as a background, had to do with the store across the street that was open from us, because they were closed Sunday, Monday. So we decided to be open Sunday, Monday, and closed Tuesday, just to give overlapping coverage and whatever.
But it was during the holiday season, or a little bit before, we went back to 7 days a week, because it's the peak season. We want to make sure people can get what they need to get. And we kind of realized that we had really gotten to a point now where, even though it's getting slow again, we are still prioritizing the store and the community over our family's well-being, and especially over our own well-being. And taking a really hard look at it, we had to go, we need to make ourselves room. And the response was not quite what I was expecting. I was expecting a lot of disappointment.
That's in our heads.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Because it turns out the community that likes you really wants you to be safe.
It was fascinating, because the comments on Facebook, on Discord, everyone was like, oh my God, you guys are finally doing it.
Yeah.
You deserve to take a break.
Right.
And the comments on Facebook were very much of the same, to the point where one of the moms of this group of teens that comes in every Thursday to play D&D was like, if I could add an 8th day of the week, I would, just so you guys can take a break. But thank you for taking care of my teenage weirdos. It's like, aw.
Yeah, I have. I told the other day some players, because I did a crossover. I was just like, well, you're not going to get your stats tomorrow because I am taking a real day off. And then the next day, somebody texted me, hey, please don't respond to this today. They're really nice. They know how hard you work. They see you working, and they see you working always. And they're just like, when you say, hey, I need some time, you haven't built the community that would respond negatively to that.
Right.
You've only built the community that is understanding of it. But it's interesting how we're our own worst enemy when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah, we I think yesterday's a great example, but and this week and the beginning of next week's kind of a weird one, because we were exhibiting at GaryCon. So we're in their TCG hall, and we're running some events and stuff. And
how does GaryCon always sell out? That's crazy to me.
The name.
It must be.
Yeah.
I wanted to go this year.
It's very celebrity.
I waited
heavy.
too long.
Yeah, very celebrity heavy. So, and it's wild because you can just walk up to any of them and they'll just talk to you.
Yeah.
Like, so there's a lot
Insane
of
how many celebrities are just absolute nerds.
yeah,
Oh, yeah,
right.
I bet the ones that go to GaryCon, I'm sure.
Yeah, but and so yesterday, I was at the store from noon to 3:30 in the morning.
Yep.
And because there was just that much for me to do.
Yeah.
But realistically, I can't be there that long, right? You know, because my kid suffers, relationship with Ben suffers.
Right.
And then, of course, the relationship that I have with the store suffers.
Right.
Because there comes a point where you're working so much, you just start to resent the things you can't have, right? And because you're working so much.
Right.
And we owe it to ourselves to fix it. It's a responsibility to ourselves. I think we talked about the responsibility to the store and the space, but we don't ever really talk about the responsibility to ourselves.
You know, you see yourself as in ownership, you know, like this is yours. It's your thing.
Yeah.
So all of the problems, all of the tasks are your tasks.
Yes.
You know, like there's your responsibility. You got to get through them. Mm-hmm. And the more things happen and the more you build out and the more you want and the more you do, the longer that tasks list gets.
Yeah.
And so unless you've got a real good relationship with where that task list has to end daily, it never will end.
Yep.
You could wake up and start working and go to sleep and you've worked all day and you didn't get through 10% of it. Yeah. And if you don't yourself say, that's okay, if you think you can get to the end of that task list, you're going to hurt yourself.
Yes.
That's a recipe for damage.
Yeah.
And it's funny how that's not intuitive. You know, like as business owners, we just feel like, no, we can get to the end of that task list. I just got to keep working. Is all it is.
I just got to work more.
I feel like as a business owner, you stop looking at yourself as a person and you look at yourself and your abilities as a tool, just like a vacuum or like your computer.
Right.
You don't think about, do they need a break? Do they need to, it's just, this is a tool for me to use.
And if you have never worked that hard in your life, you don't know what the fuck we're talking about.
Correct.
Yep.
Because I had never worked this hard in my life, and I didn't realize that this was real.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I tell people, no, I worked myself into a mental health episode, they're like, what the fuck? Like, how do you even do that?
Yeah.
You work nonstop.
Yeah.
You literally have nothing else in your mind but your next task, and you do that for months or years, and at some point, your brain goes, hey, I am about to teach you something about the human brain. It doesn't work this way.
Yeah.
You know? And, like, I feel like it's so toxic. What we see prevalent online right now about this, like, grind culture where you just, like, sleep less and wake up early and drink a shit ton of coffee and work. And it's like, try that. Do that. That's not going to go the way that you expect.
And it's some of it's generational too, right?
Yeah.
Like, because we're all part of the millennial generation.
Yeah.
And
dude, boomers wish
Oh
they could
God.
be as productive as a millennial.
I-
There's so many more tools that we have for productivity now.
Yeah.
I produce more in one day than a boomer would in months. You know, like there's
Yeah.
no way you compare.
It's crazy to me. Like, one of our previous bosses always kind of gave me crap about being a millennial and stuff, and how
Entitled?
I worked. Yeah,
Yeah.
And like
You don't
how
know
I
what work is.
exactly, and how I worked and everything. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I just
Yeah.
produced
We're
a
here more than you are.
Right.
And I'm like, first of all, I work from like 8 a.m. to like 9 or 10 p.m. I'm
Yeah.
here that much. But then I also...
It's not just the hours. It's
Yeah.
what are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your output, I mean, just from the tools we have technologically, your output is what it took teams to do
Yeah.
for decades.
That's it, which is crazy,
Yeah.
you know. And then, like, and another reason why we got out of like the corporate world is because when I had to step back and stop doing the job of like 3 different marketing people, and I needed a breather, I was in trouble because I wasn't
Right.
producing as much,
Right.
you know. And I was like, well, I mean, you're only paying me for X amount of dollars of
Yeah.
work, but I've been giving you like twice that amount of dollars of work.
That's also the dangerous thing, I think, because let's say you have like a really good healthy relationship with your idea of productivity
Yeah.
when you're an employee. that doesn't exactly translate to when you're an owner. Because when you're an employee, you can say, I'm not being paid enough. You know?
Exactly.
Like, let's say you have a good relationship with what that mentality is, right? I found that out working for cell phones. When I was working for cell phones, they did the worst thing in the world. They didn't realize it was the worst thing in the world, but they did the worst thing in the world. They gave me my revenue generated per hour. That is a mistake to my brain.
Yep.
Because that lets me know how valuable I am. And I can look at how much I'm being paid versus how much revenue I'm generating per hour and go, these numbers are way too far apart, guy. So, like, that was kind of my, like, I don't know if I would call it my awakening of my class consciousness, but I started really seriously considering what my value was for a company. Mm-hmm. So, from that point forward, I knew to say, hey, you're not paying me enough for that. You know, you want me to work harder? Okay, well, you need to pay me more, because at the rate they're paying me, I'm not going to work that hard. Now, that is an impossible relationship to have with your time and when you work when you're the owner. Because when you're the owner, there is a nebulous idea of some dream in the future that if you just fucking grind it, you will be well off at some point. Mm-hmm. There is no, well, I have this much money coming in, so you get this much input. No, it is all of the output 100% of the time for some nebulous idea someday in the future.
Yep. Well, and especially for, I think, a mix of our generation and the kind of people we are, being very neurospicy, is you always want to do your best. You always want to give your best. You cannot always give your best, especially when your best is 150, 200, 300 times of like a relatively reasonable capacity.
Right.
Because we don't listen to our bodies or our emotions, and we just push ourselves too far.
I think that was a meme or something.
Always giving that much, you're gonna just... There is
nowhere give it 100%. Do not give it 100%. Be careful with that.
Because you also have kids. You also have life. You have your body. You have bills to pay. You have hobbies that you should maybe kind of sometimes touch. And ultimately,
you need a hobby.
You have 100% to give. You can't always give the business 100% because you've got to give it to your husband or your wife or your kids or whatever else. And so you have to spread it. And giving 100% to everything all the time is this really horrible mentality that has like been ingrained in us that is so unreasonable.
Yeah. It literally is what causes burnout.
Yeah.
You are burnt out because you are at full capacity always. Mm-hmm. And at some point you realize that life makes you realize at some point that is untenable, that you cannot do that. Even if you want to. Even if you really want to.
Yeah.
And you're just like, no, I must. No, you can't.
There's this perception sometimes I think that owners have where, and I know I do too, I suffer from this, because I don't take a paycheck from the business yet. And I probably won't for a couple more years still, just because like I would go back into the business anyway, you know. And so it's easy for me to go, oh, my labor's free.
Oof.
Mm-hmm. But it's not, you know. It's like, oh, I can do this. Yeah, I'll just do it because
and most people
free.
will tell you got to give yourself something.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but and it'll come eventually. You know, it'll come eventually.
I know the mentality, but like
but it's one of those like you just gotta. It's changing that mindset because for me as a human being, I am in 100% or I'm not in at all.
Yeah.
And like I wish I had a middle ground.
I feel like we're a lot alike, Jen, because like my reaction, my instinct is to dive 100% into whatever I do, and
she has to smack me over the head a lot about that.
I like to obsess, you know, like, and it's not even an unconscious thing. I consciously know I'm obsessing about something, and I like it. It's a cool feeling. To see improvement and to see results, to me, is incredibly motivating. So I love to do it.
It's kind of like falling into the stupid games on your phone,
dude,
that like it goes by level, and so you're like the merge farm things. It's like, man, I've got to this like super big dragon now. I can just keep going, but then you go back and it's like you got to put all the little pieces back together. But it's such a serotonin boost to see those increases.
Number go up is so big for me.
It's a killer, and it's so interesting too because anytime we see a return from something that we do, or like a good response from it, it's like, let's do it again. Let's do it 20 times harder. Let's do it.
In a funny way, it's kind of like childbirth because there is this. It's a psychological phenomenon that after childbirth, women forget the pain. Like you genuinely you don't remember exactly what it was like. And so, but you get the dopamine and the serotonin of this cute little baby, and your body reacts to it. And you immediately go, oh, I want another one. Because you've completely forgotten how horrible the last 9 months and the last like 3 days were.
Sure.
But it's so much like that. We do a convention and it's like, oh, we did it. And we did it really well.
Yeah.
Well, hell, we can do this other one, too.
Leading up to it, it's a ton of work and setting up and all the stuff and the logistics and blah, blah, blah. And then you do it and you have kind of a fun time. Yeah. And then when you're done, you're just like, let's do that shit again.
Because there's so much of like this relief of like, oh, it's done now.
Yeah.
And that went way better than we thought it would.
Yeah.
And you've completely forgotten the like 4 weeks of misery you just put yourself through. Yeah.
And it's hard, too, because you have this like really interesting relationship with success now. You have a real idea for what it means to be the victim of your success.
Yeah.
You know, like that's kind of what happened with The Living World. That's where I got burnt out because I was, you know, like I handle the marketing here, but also when The Living World was at 50 players, we didn't have any DMs yet. It was just me. And at 50 players, that was 14 games a month that I was running myself.
Oh my God.
And so that's 14 times 4 hours of time that I was doing. And that wasn't during my 40-hour a week that I was doing regularly. That was, I did my 40 hours, then I would do an extra 40 hours a month in just D&D. And so, or 40 to 52 hours extra. So I was working an extra week and a half outside of like our scheduled time.
So much.
And that was without the prep. That was just sitting in the chair running the sessions. So there was also more to it. And during the season 2, season 3 break, I had a mental breakdown. Because and I didn't know what that was. I wasn't looking for an excuse to stop working. The exact opposite. I was trying to maximize every fucking second of every day.
Right.
At some point, my brain started acting weird. And it like I had a week-long panic attack. And now I'm in therapy, and after 4 months of therapy, my therapist goes, okay, let's talk about that event. And I'm like, okay, cool, in retrospect. And she's just like, that wasn't, I don't think, a panic attack. And I'm like, okay, go on. And she's like, week-long panic attacks aren't a thing. I think what you had was the psychotic break. And I'm like, okay. Like that's hard to hear, but like, it makes sense because if you don't have a good relationship with not working and you think you can maximize your time, your brain is going to let you know that that's impossible. You know, like you need rest.
And it gets so hard too because you get so into it.
Yeah, I wasn't unhappy.
No,
I was enjoying it.
Yeah,
actually.
like you're enjoying yourself and you're keeping busy. Your brain's busy. You know, you're exhausted, so you're sleeping relatively well. You know, and until that happens, you miss all the warning signs.
Right.
Because you're so into it, and there's that that serotonin boost from doing it, and you miss those warning signs.
Yeah. And
it's easy to miss those.
In retrospect, thinking back, the week or two beforehand, I should have known it was coming. You know, when I look back, there were a lot of just like, hey, that's not normal. You're not acting normal anymore. You know?
Right.
Yeah. But like you ignore the warning signs because you're so happy about how productive you are. You know, you're finally. So this could also be maybe a generational thing, or maybe it's like a trauma thing. But I, especially I kind of still have a bad relationship with it. But I tie a lot of my self-worth with my ability to produce.
Yep.
And I had a bad relationship with that when I was younger because I couldn't produce as much. I wasn't disciplined enough. And so I was always kind of shitting on myself for not being as productive as I could have been. So now that I'm a really productive person, it's very self-congratulatory, very serotonin burst when I'm producing the shit out of all the things that I've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so there is no self-governance unless you really know how to watch out for it. There's no self-governance. You're happy. You're happily doing all this work. This is a cool moment in your life.
Well, it's such a mental trick, especially for people with that kind of trauma, because it's not only about the production, but it's feeling good about yourself. I'm not just producing, but I'm good at what I'm producing.
I'm succeeding. I'm killing it.
Like, it's the final, like, I always joke around, but it's true, is I tell people I survive off caffeine and spite. And it is this someone told me I couldn't do this, or someone told me this wouldn't succeed, or whatever else. And so this little gremlin part of my brain is like, yeah, prove them wrong, fuck them. And so every time I go a little bit farther and do a little bit better, and I know I'm killing myself because I also have, on top of super neurospicy, I have a lot of physical health issues. And I'll be like walking with a cane for a week because I pushed myself way too far. But I'm still in my head like, man, I did that. That was awesome. I can do that again. I just need to give myself like a little bit of time to recover, and then I'll be fine. And it's so unrealistic because your brain tricks you and like, yeah, this is good.
Because success feels cool.
Yeah.
Especially when you've been looking for it, you know, when you've been trying hard. You know, an interesting thing about trying and failing is that when you try and succeed, it feels good.
Yes.
You know? You keep pulling yourself back up. You keep getting up when you fall because you expect that someday you're going to stop falling. You're going to fucking make it.
Yeah.
So when you're making it, you're not going to stop.
Right.
Nothing's going to stop you because, like, you can get hurt. Your success can hurt you, you know?
And it's so easy to miss because you're getting this internal validation that a lot of times a lot of us didn't get as kids or as young adults
that you've been
in those
searching
formative
for.
years.
Very motivating to get that internal validation.
And, you know, we always look at it from parental figures or teachers or bosses, and you're finally in this position where I don't need someone else to validate me. I feel good about what I'm doing. And
I feel fulfilled.
Yeah. And you feel unstoppable, and then you realize, no, I do have limitations. Shit.
I have not thought about anything other than work for months.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's crazy. Yeah. I now play video games. I hadn't played video games in 9 years. But I play video games now because I can't play these games anymore. Not as a release. Not as a hobby.
Right, because it feels like work.
It always feels like work. It feels like I'm back in work. And so now I play video games. I got a PS5, and I'm playing games at home. And, like, that feels like a disconnect. And it happened because during the break, I started playing Stardew Valley with Janet. And we got really into it. And it was therapeutic, dude.
It is.
It was therapy. I was, like, gone. Like, I only felt not anxious when I was playing Stardew Valley. And I'm like, okay, I need a hobby, and video games look like they're working, so I'm gonna get some video games.
I know for me, I have a I have a D&D group that I've been a part of for ever. It's friends that I've known since middle school and high school, and family friends and stuff. And we recently, I shouldn't say recently, but we all reconnected about 10 years ago. And so we've been playing D&D together for like 10 years.
Oh, jeez.
And it's been such a great time. And so we've been playing, but now I'm the DM. I've been the DM for the last like 2 or 3 years. And I love it. I go and we probably have a session a month, maybe twice a month if we're super lucky and our schedules align well. But for me, it's kind of cool because I am facilitating a story, right? But my players are old enough and experienced enough where there's only so much prep I have to do for them because they run with the story well enough. And so, and it's nice for me just to sit back and watch. Yeah. And I get a good release with that, and it's nice too because they're my friends, right? I get to sit and
well, playing D&D with friends, kitchen table D&D, is very different than the performance D&D that we do here.
Exactly,
you know, like that's a different, that's a whole different game.
And we plan a whole day to play, but we maybe only get an actual of like 4 hours in,
because you're hanging out.
Exactly, we're hanging out, chilling, talking about life, you know, having drinks, whatever it is. So I've tried to get back to doing that because I wasn't for a long time. And
I'm in a terrible place because none of my friends play D&D. Because I wouldn't mind running a little kitchen table D&D, but none of my friends play D&D.
Sounds like you need better friends.
Damn, that's a call out.
I'll come play with you. I keep trying to get Ben to restart our family campaign, and I'm like...
That'd be so badass if we all did like a little, like just a fun campaign together.
Yep, that'd be fantastic. I got to play in a campaign in the store I filled in for someone, and I had so much fun with it. It's like it brings the itch back. It's like, man, I miss playing. I need to get back into a campaign. It's so much fun. I miss it. I really do.
Yeah.
Yeah, D&D became such a big part of my life, and I always wanted it to be. And I think that was why I was so happy to just give all my time to it. Because this idea that, like, you could make a career out of playing D&D was just unbelievable to me, you know? And not in the way that traditionally you make a career out of D&D. Like, I wasn't going to do a live play podcast or become some kind of D&D celebrity. I was just going to run games and try to make a career out of that. And it seemed very pie in the sky, especially the way that I wanted to do it. I wanted to do an MMO style game. It just seemed very pie in the sky. And a lot of people around me were just like, good luck, you know? And then when it started working, it was that self-validation where I was just like, I had an idea and it finally worked. And so I'm going to give my 100% to this idea. It just felt so cool and so right. Mm-hmm. And even now, I love it. I love it. I'm blessed. You know, like this is the coolest thing that I've ever worked on. I'm happy to do it every day that I do it. I was sick, you know, like I was out sick a couple of days ago, and in bed, I'm like doing the session prep for the next, you know, like session, because like I really enjoy it. But now I've had to like really build into my life real serious not working times, you know, and to value my partner and to value my daughter and to value my own enjoyment out of life, you know?
There's a quote that I hate. I hate this quote with every fiber of my being. And it's, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
I fucking hate that quote.
I don't like that quote even a little bit.
Like
know?
It, because
so, and that's actually why I started thinking about needing new hobbies. Because somebody came in here and said that to me. Like, it was just like an off day. Some random person was just like, well, you know, at least you made a career out of your games and stuff, you know, like out of your hobbies. And I'm like, the funny thing about making a career out of your hobbies is that you lose your hobbies and you just are left with career.
Exactly. Yeah. And you're left with kind of that, like, I don't want to say soul-sucking feeling, because that's not the right term, but you're left with kind of an, oh, well, I get to watch everybody else enjoy it.
It's kind of
right, exactly.
sad nostalgia.
Yeah, sad nostalgia, because it's like, oh, I wish I could do that.
I remember enjoying this.
Yeah. And even when you get the opportunity, I was just saying, I miss playing D&D, but you go and sit and play, and it's like, it's not the same.
Yeah.
It's just like we were saying with board games.
Because it used to be an escape.
And you worry about how much you're not getting done.
Yeah.
I personally have a much better relationship with that now. After my event, if I'm not working, I do not think about it. Like, period. What I'm not getting done, I've made my peace with that. If I'm not working, I am making my peace with what I'm not working on. Because otherwise, I don't enjoy my rest time. And you have to enjoy your rest time. For it to be real rest time, you have to enjoy your rest time.
Yeah, that's going to be a learning process.
It's tough. It's tough.
I've gotten to a good point now where, God bless my husband. I don't know how he puts up with me. I don't know how we're still married. This man tolerates so much. But I go home at the end of the night and I'm just so completely burnt out. Because I always tell people I'm an extrovert with social anxiety.
Sure.
I'm not an introvert at all, but man, it takes a lot out of me.
Yeah.
And so I go home and I'm just drained. And we're doing the same thing with the video games with the Escape right now. And so we always have a 2-player game that we're working through. We just finished It Takes Two. We were playing Fallout 76 before. And we'll get my daughter in bed, and then he makes me my drink, which sounds horrible, but it's just a Shirley Temple.
Sure.
And after about an hour, I will turn my phone off and hand it to him. And I tell him, do not give this back to me until we go to bed, and I need to turn my alarms off. Because I know that if I have my phone on, our Discord goes off 24/7.
Right.
There's always somebody asking questions, and that's fantastic.
Yeah.
But it's this mental obligation.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely better at it than Jen is, but I'm very proud of you because you're getting there.
With what?
With the separation of work and home.
Oh yeah, I am the worst at it. Yeah. I will lay in bed 2:00 in the morning and I'm like, okay, I need to go to sleep. And then it's like,
and then somehow you're checking your emails.
Yeah, I'm checking my emails. I'm responding to emails. I'm responding to Discord messages. And then suddenly I'm not going to sleep until 5:00 in the morning.
Yep.
Because, hey, you know what? I just got another 3 hours of work in.
And that's why I had to look at myself and go, I cannot stop myself from doing this. This is your problem now.
Yeah.
And I pass it off to somebody else. And it's, especially with neurodivergence or ADHD, a lot of times it's hard to hold yourself accountable. And for some people, that's holding yourself accountable to getting work done.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's holding yourself accountable to not and making a commitment to have that time away. And sometimes you just need someone to take it away from you and be like, no, you can't have this back.
Yeah, you got to lean on your partners, you know, like you got to lean on the people who know you the most, you know, know you really, like, they know, and they know that you're not going to give them pushback. You know, like one of the cool things about having a long-term partner, somebody who really understands you and like knows you, is that they know when to listen and they know when to not listen to you. You know, if I say, hey, don't let me grab my phone, and I really need my phone, she'll give it back. But if I go, hey, don't give me my phone, and I'm like, hey, can I have my phone? She won't give it back, and like that's important. You know, like to have somebody that knows you like that.
Yeah,
and you know, like when we. I won't speak for you guys, but it's easy to forget that you don't have to do this alone. Mm-hmm. There are people around you that are very happy to help.
Yeah,
and I like to feel like the big tough guy and I can do everything, but it doesn't always work out. And to your point about the Discord, so like I run our Discord, you know, like I'm very proud of our Discord. Our Discord is very elegantly designed, I think. It's very easy for me to be on that all the time and to make sure that it is going the way that it's supposed to. But I have pushed myself to a place where I know that if somebody doesn't get an answer immediately, it will not be the end of the world.
Yes.
If it's 10 o'clock and I'm watching Severance and I'm having a good night and a message comes through, I don't have to answer it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I could just go to sleep, and then the next day, when I'm back at work, and it's time I've set for work, I can open up the Discord and respond, and that person is not going to be upset.
Yeah.
That person's not going to be like, well, what the fuck, man? Like, why didn't you respond to me last? Like, you know, that'll never cross their mind. That is just my anxiety.
Yep.
Yeah. And I am the worst at that. Like if I have someone like especially on Discord. Now I will admit you've
Discord?
seen my Discord.
Oh my God.
I literally have I'm part of 30 different Discords.
Yikes.
And so I've muted all but 5 or 6.
Yeah.
You know, that I have to be pretty active on, but
I walk over
hell.
to she'll show me a message that we're discussing something, and the left side of her screen is just all little red bubbles, and I'm like, Jen, clear your notifications.
Yeah. Well, because
I have most of my Discord muted.
Yeah, I'm such a weirdo because I will leave notifications up or not read messages because I don't have time. And then when I have time, I can finally go back to them. But and it's one of those anxiety things, right? Like if I clear all the messages, oh my God, I don't know what I've missed.
Yeah. Right.
You know, and so, and trying to unfuck my brain from, thinking that way is real tough. And that's been hard. So it's been real hard.
I have a really interesting relationship with what I'll allow into my life from the inception.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm going to join a Discord, if it's going to require too much of me, I'll just not join that. Discord.
Yeah.
Because I know how much time I have, and it's not much.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have friends so much anymore. You know, and that's a tough reality of being a business owner.
Yep.
I used to have a lot of friends. Mm-hmm. And not that they're not my friends. I love them all dearly. But I don't see them anymore.
Yeah.
And it's because I have time for my partner and my daughter. You know, I barely have time for my family. And I force myself to have time for my family.
Yep.
And then I have time for work. And then friends, it's going to be tough. It's going to and I don't drink anymore. I stopped drinking. So I don't even have the I could use a night to just go out and drink. I don't even do that anymore. Yeah. So there's not even these little windows that there used to be where I would be a little irresponsible and whatever, my time is my time. I don't even have that anymore. So you have to be okay with the loss of a lot of things that you had if you're going to do something like this.
Yeah, and I'm very blessed that I have one of my best friends who she's been my friend since middle school. God, we're so fucking old. But she tells me when I have to come down and do D&D because that's my ability to see my friend time. I also have the benefit too of I work at the Renaissance Fair, the Bristol Renaissance Fair, and I have since I was 13, when that was legal to work at 13. And
air quotes.
Legal.
When that was, you mean when they didn't ask?
Right. And so, but I've been working out there for about that long, with a break here or there. And those people that I work out there with are my friends. I'm very close to a lot of them. And I still am, but there's this weird kind of thing when it comes to working at a Renaissance fair where you are friends and then you don't ever talk until the next season, and you kind of pick up where you left off.
Yeah.
You know, and it's nice because I'm a very different person in the summer than I am the winter. Because also with the Renaissance Fair, for me, I get to insult people and yell at people and not feel bad about it.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's a little bit of cathartic feeling from that too, but
That's just me on a day-to-day basis.
I just worked it into my personality.
yeah. So, but I'm lucky that in the summer, you know, I get those weekends to see some of my friends and people who have been like formative for me, you know, when I was younger. Because I am the person I am because of the Renaissance Fair, as weird as that sounds.
No, yeah.
But
that makes sense.
It's made me a more well-rounded person in some weird fucked up ways. But yeah.
We've talked a lot. I like the conversation that we've had because I think it gives people, especially with you guys, right? So you guys have built a business that is on the outside, front-facing. It is very polished. It's very pretty, very welcoming, very like they have their head on straight kind of feeling. These conversations, I feel like when people get to hear them, it's like that's what it takes, you know, like that's what's going on in their brains while this is happening, you know, and I like that we've had that conversation, but I don't want people to misconstrue it because even though you guys work very hard and we work very hard here, there's never a moment where I wish I could take it back, you know, like this is the coolest thing I've ever done, and I won't speak for you guys, but like I wouldn't take it back for anything, you know, like the things I've learned about myself and about the business have been tough to learn, but I wouldn't take this back.
No, I don't think I would either. Were there things that I wish I would have done differently or changed? Yeah, absolutely. But I think that for me, and I'm not going to speak for Robyn, but for me, you know, the sacrifices that I've made or my family's made, and either financially or otherwise, to see what this could become. Yeah. You know, and to see how it's shaped and formed, I couldn't want to take it back, because even though like I could, you know, it could all go up in flames. You know, all that money that we put in could go away.
Damn,
you know,
that first year, that was all I was thinking.
I know.
I was like, holy shit, we're going to lose everything.
You mean you're not still thinking that? Tell me your secrets.
Yeah. And
people would walk in here and be like, hey, congratulations, this is a great store. And I'm like, please don't congratulate me right now. I still think I'm going to lose it all.
Yeah, exactly. You know, but it would still be worth it, because it's one of those, I tried. You know, right. We had this dream, we had this vision, and we tried, you know, and I wanted to make sure I at least tried to do something that had been on my mind for as long as I can remember. Yeah. And so I don't think I could ever want to take that back.
Yeah. For me, it's very much, even in the hardest times, I would never take it back. I would never undo it. God, it's been hard sometimes. There's been, even in the hardest times, where the physical toll has become so much that I'm crying getting out of bed in the morning, or the mental load is so much, we get those phone calls that are thanking us. Or we just have this group of kids come in that I know would otherwise be out just causing problems, and you see them come in and they're excited to be playing board games. Yeah. And it's the kind of kids that you would never think would be excited. And it's those little moments that it's not about the store. It's not about the sales. It is about the difference we have really made in people's lives. Yeah. And I wouldn't take that back for anything. And those were some moments where I'm like, I wouldn't take it back, but God, would I keep doing this? It always comes at the right time, where you need to hear it, that like you've made a difference. You have done something. It is some of the RPGs telling us you saved my kid's life. You put me in touch with these people who I never knew before, and now they are literally my family. And it's a little bit humbling in a sense, because it has become something so much bigger than we are, and bigger than our own capabilities. And it's scary sometimes, because it's like, God, what if not just, if the store burns down, I lose all this product, but if this store burns down, this community that we've built and this genuine family that we've built, or if we make a
Yeah.
wrong step and you know, we
Right.
we don't make good business decisions. It's not just about, am I going to be okay? Is my family going to be okay? It's this emotional, mental load
Right.
of, is my community going to be okay?
Right.
But I still,
You've built a community. That's a
Yeah.
real thing.
and I still wouldn't give it up for the world. And it's something, and again, Jen and I had a few really hard talks recently, and it's something that even breaking down in the, like, we're doing too much, we're killing ourselves. It's, I don't want to give this up, and I can't give this up.
Right.
Because we're doing something good.
Right.
And so it's so worth the burnout, and it's worth the pain, and it's worth the struggle. But God, there's a lot of burnout and struggle.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's the coolest things that you can do in life, I think, just require so much, and to navigate how to give your all realistically without giving your all literally
Yes.
is not something anybody can teach you, and you got to figure it out on your own, and you got to take your licks, and then when you do, you got to get back up, and you know it's not for everyone. And I always tell myself, or you know, talk about how if I wasn't doing this, so this is funny. If I always say if I wasn't doing this, I would just go be an employee. You know, I just go be a good employee somewhere, and just climb a ladder and have a boss. And have him deal with the responsibilities, and I'll just fucking make the money and clock out, you know? But the reality is I wouldn't. I would just try it again. I would try it again, taking everything that I learned, and I would just do it better. Because even though it is very difficult, it is so rewarding when it's because of you.
Yeah.
You know? It's so cool that if it succeeds, it's, you know, I figured it out. And, like, I have huge help, you know, like I have incredibly competent and, you know, forward-thinking and hard-working business partners that I could not have done this without, you know. This store exists because 5 hard-working people do it.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I by myself would have caved a long time ago. In fact, that first year, there was a moment in November when I told Janet, I don't think I got this dog in me, actually, you know. Like, I don't think I can. I thought I could. I don't think I can. And then late November, early December, we finally broke through the clouds.
Oh, yeah.
But it takes a lot out of you. But I think I would just do it again because there's something cool about being your own boss and about setting your own, you know, setting your life up the way that you, I don't know, I guess can, but like I don't know, just being in charge of it. It feels different.
Yeah.
And I like that feeling. I like that feeling more than I ever liked being an employee. And I'm not even shitting on employees, you know, like a lot of times I think, wouldn't it just be cooler to just clock in and clock out and to leave all of it at work, you know, and to just go home and not be a worker 24 hours a day. I'm a worker 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
Because, like, even though I try to have a good relationship with separating myself, you know, it's still my responsibility. I still want to know what's going on.
Yep.
I'm still in it. And so wouldn't it be cool not to? And if you can have that relationship with your career, then more fucking power to you, you know?
Yeah.
But there's something about this that I really do enjoy, so I don't want anybody to take this as we were complaining, you know?
No, I don't think it's complaining. I think it's just it's
This is just how the sauce
It's
is.
just being
is.
realistic.
Yeah,
this is just
yeah.
real.
Because I like if I wasn't doing this, like I think if I had to go back to like the corporate working world, I would just not like. I don't think I could. I don't think it's in me to do that again because it was just so.
Corporate specifically sucks.
It's
Dude.
just so soulless
Yeah.
sometimes, and
So false.
well, and you, and as a marketer too, many people don't know this actually. As a marketer working for another company, your work and your art and your brainchild and all of that doesn't belong to you.
Right.
None of it's
You
yours.
don't own any of
I've
it.
built a communications apparatus for this store. That's mine. You know, like
Exactly.
I get to direct it. If I was building that for somebody else, I'd be like, I'm taking that with me if I leave, just letting you know, you know?
No,
Like,
and
One
then
of the
and then
most-
someone else gets your the credit for it for
Yeah.
everything you do. It's crazy.
I won't name names, but the company I worked for before we started the business, I took their kind of mascot from their logo and I made an actual mascot and I made like a cute little cartoonified version of it and started using it on all the social medias and on the website and stuff. And I quit not on the best of terms because, again, the boss was totally dick. And then a couple months after I quit, I went back and I looked at their social media, and they were still using it. And then I even recently, it's come up because of ads and stuff, and they're still using the little character. And every time I look at it and I go, that was mine.
Right.
I did that.
I should have taken that with me.
Right. Yeah, but you don't own any of that. And so
that's tough.
If nothing else, having your own business, it gives you a sense of ownership.
Yeah.
Right. And a sense of like,
that your accomplishments are yours.
Yeah. Like at least even if it all fucking goes to hell and it blows up and explodes or whatever else, at least it was mine.
Yeah.
You know, and at least it was something tangible that we created and that we did.
It's the Frank Sinatra, I did it my way.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Exactly. So, and some of that too was actually, now that you mentioned Frank Sinatra, hold on a second, let me get a little emotional again. Some of that I think was from our grandfather, Papa. He was an architect.
Yeah.
And he had almost always had his business out of his house. Mm-hmm. And so we watched him growing up. I would sit in his lap while he was drawing plants.
Yeah.
And he was just constantly working.
Yep.
But it was always, he just always seemed so happy with it.
And he genuinely loved what he did.
Yeah. And that was something I think we've always wanted because we just had that example, set in front of us. And so... And that was his favorite song in the world. I did it my way.
He also survived off of, instead of caffeine, it was nicotine in spite. So
nicotine in spite. But I don't think, like, if, because you always have that if in the back of your head. If things went under. And right now,
you got to be realistic with that if.
Yeah, well, and right now, too, like, I'm sure you guys are going to start feeling it, too. And I'm going to keep it so far out of politics, but the reality is that the tariffs are causing price increases.
Yeah, did you get that email from distribution?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, that's a real thing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
And we're seeing the spikes like crazy all over the place. And
it feels like this big tsunami
that's
now.
coming.
Yeah, it feels like the water is receding.
Yeah.
Yes, it's exactly what it feels like right now.
And you're starting to see the horizon shift just a little bit, and you're like, shit.
Yeah.
This is coming, and all we can do is brace.
Yeah, right. Brace. The day after the election, I came in here and me and Quinn opened, and I was just like, hey, Quinn, you want to have a little conversation about tariffs? Because that might be the case in our future. And that was back in November of last year. And, like, ever since that day, I'm like, okay, well, this dude looks like he wants to change the way that international shipping works. Yep. And we move an international product.
Yeah.
So we have to...
Every part of our industry is international product.
Yeah.
And I keep saying 80%, but a genuine, like, huge chunk of the world's paper supply comes from Canada.
Right.
And so anything that involves paper,
right,
even if it's manufactured in China, is going to get double tariffed.
Yeah.
Like,
it's gonna
board games, TCGs, all kinds of stuff. It's gonna be crazy. And I don't think, as a personal opinion, my own, just Jen and not Oddwillow's, as a company, I think it's gonna be really bad. Mm-hmm. I do. Yeah. And we're seeing the signs of that. Publishers are posting about the tariffs that they just got, where, like, previously, it was really on the small side, and now it's, like, astronomical, and so we're starting to see those price changes and those fluctuations, and it's terrifying. We just had a conversation the other day, about what are we going to do, because as our company, we, like, fully, again, admitting, like, we try to be totally transparent. We don't have the money to absorb that.
Right.
We just don't. We don't.
That's not how our margins work.
No. No.
We price everything on the slimmest margin already.
Yeah.
There's no way to absorb 25 to 40%.
And I can raise my prices. We can start doing keystoning for certain things or whatever. But there's only so much that can go before everybody stops spending.
Right.
And we can only absorb that for 2 months at most.
Yeah.
It's not like prices are going up, but it's okay because our wages are going up.
Right.
No.
Prices are going up, and everybody's having a hard time buying eggs. So
And everyone's having a hard time finding jobs again.
right.
Like,
So I
it's-
don't know how quick people are going to be to buy a $220 booster box now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, like that's
Or a $200-some-odd board game that they wanted.
Yeah.
So we just had a conversation about how we're going to try to pivot. What else we're going to try to do to make sure we can stay alive. And live, because that's a real scary reality for us right now. And very real conversations we've had is that if this gets really bad, our store may not survive. Just because we don't have the traffic to sustain, and our safety net is only so big.
right.
And so, we have 2, maybe 3 months, 6 if we really, really make some drastic changes. And that, that's about it. If people stop spending,
Right.
or if these, tariffs and stuff get really bad. So,
Yeah,
it's scary.
This business, like all businesses, it runs on people spending, but this is all like hedonic retail is all extra stuff.
Yep.
So like if you don't have enough for the stuff that you really need, then you're certainly not going to make enough
Exactly.
for the things that you don't really need. And so we're the first to go. And it's sad too when like the market is really forcing or at the very least really incentivizing people to buy from big boxes and from Amazons and warehouses that, mistreat their employees and, pay next to nothing or whatever and abuse the shit out of the people that are working for them. And then and use that to drive costs as low as possible to undercut us.
Yep.
And like they're gonna maybe come out on top in this situation.
And it's a real gut punch when you have a board game on your shelf and you go to a big box retailer and they are selling it for less than the cost that you paid.
Less than cost.
Yeah.
That's so
It's
unbelievable.
crazy. Like I went into not gonna name names or anything, but I went into a big box retailer and I remember this very distinctly because we were in a panic because we didn't have any Catan on the shelf. And we went to a big box retailer locally.
Yeah,
and
it was
I was
cheaper than
like,
cost.
and it was cheaper.
remember that.
Yeah.
It was cheaper
we actually
because you called me on the phone. It was like, can you look up what the cost of this is?
Yeah.
And it was like $5 more expensive than what they were selling it for. I was like, buy them out.
Yeah.
Because it's crazy that even as like a retailer, I have to go to
Right.
like one of the big boxes sometimes to get product.
Right.
And it's less than what I'm being charged by a distributor, which is crazy.
Yeah, like it's there's a conversation that's being had right now that's really big around Pokemon. That is about like do you sell at MSRP? Do you sell at market? What is market? When is that appropriate?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it from the consumer side, it's like, well, you should sell at market if it's under MSRP, but you should sell at MSRP if market is over MSRP.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, well, that's really difficult as a retailer because you're buying. So like distribution will sell you a product at the price that they sell you at.
Yes. Yeah.
And then you are not necessarily, I mean, unless you just are always like a always market person, you're pricing it based on what is going to return the healthy margin for you. You need to be in the green. You need to have positive cash flow. So regardless of what the market is, you want to have positive cash flow.
Yeah.
Whenever you go into the negative, it's because there was a miscalculation there. The product didn't do as well as you expected, or maybe you ordered too much, or maybe your customership was satiated. There's a million reasons why you would sell it under market, like a clearance or whatever.
Exactly.
There's a million
Yeah.
reasons why that might happen. But you initially price your stuff at just to have positive cash flow. Now, some people are taking advantage of the fact that Pokemon right now is like the markup for that is fucking nuts.
Yeah.
Like you can 3x your money and people will buy it.
Yeah.
Well, at the very least, there's some expectation that somebody's going to buy it at 3x the cost, and I guess it is moving in some places at 3x the cost. But like our mentality around a lot of these things is when product comes out, when we order product, we just want to have positive cash flow around it. We want it to cover our expenses and like our margins.
Yep. Yeah.
And that conversation, that's the way that LGS works. Like, I mean, unless you're a flipper, that's how LGS works.
Yeah.
You pay a distributor, you get a product, you flip that product for a margin. Right now, the system is not set up for the LGS to survive,
No,
to
it's
succeed.
not.
Because
No.
big boxes don't have to play that game. They get it way less expensive.
They do.
And sell it at MSRP in huge volume. And so, like, when we sell it, even if we sell it at MSRP or, you know, like a degree over it because we need to make our margins back, we are looked at as the bad guys.
As the bad guys. And it's crazy because, like, so for people who don't, like, know what the term means, Keystone means you take your price and you double it. Or you take your cost, what you purchase it from the distributor, and you double it. And that's keystoning. And that accounts for, one, allows you to theoretically pay back what you paid for it. And then you pay for the labor. And then you pay for your fees, like credit card fees.
Right, yeah.
And then you pay for maybe the shipping and a couple other things. And you're maybe, as an LGS, left with, if you are lucky, 20%.
Yeah, if you're fucking lucky.
If you're fucking lucky. When it comes to TCGs, it's like 2 or 3%.
Right, yeah.
You know,
so we don't do board games. We do mostly TCGs and shit.
Exactly.
And so we don't see a lot of fucking margin on that.
No,
stuff.
and we, now TCGs are so much more of a part of our business now, too, that it is, it is insane. And so in order to survive, like, especially when it comes to Pokemon specifically, because we had to mark it up over Keystone.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily because we didn't want to sell at MSRP anymore. It's literally my time and labor into procuring Pokemon right now has skyrocketed.
Yeah, it's huge.
It takes me hours a day to try and get my hands on Pokemon or figure out where it's coming from.
Calling like 15 different distributors.
Yeah.
All of them giving you one box.
Yeah, and
nuts.
it's and I have to account for that labor somewhere because I'm not doing things elsewhere.
Yeah, exactly. So here's the thing that people don't realize. If it is not going to make any money and it's going to take a tremendous amount of labor, why in the fuck would I do it?
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't even make sense.
No.
Okay, you know what? Let the other stores carry it then.
Yeah.
Because that's not, the juice is not worth the squeeze on that.
No. And that's kind of where we're at with Lorcana too.
Yes.
Like we've ended OP with Lorcana because it just it's not moving in our store.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a lot of work and effort for it's been sitting on our shelves.
Right.
Yep. You know.
And that's money. I think what people don't like, because it's not intuitive. I think if you think about it for any amount of time, it does become intuitive, but it's not intuitive in the sense that when you walk into a store, you're just like, yeah, store carries product. Those are the products. But as a store owner, what you need to think of is if a store has product, that is money that is just sitting there.
Yep.
That's money I invested that has not moved. We need turn. Turn is important.
Yeah.
If you don't get turn, then you lose your business. You know, so
Yeah.
it needs to be moving. If you walk into a store and you see a box, and you walk into that store 4 months later and you still see that same box, and you walk into that store 4 months later and you still that same box, that means that store lost that money.
Yep.
that's you know.
Yeah.
Unless they take a loss on that, and sometimes in some cases a heavy loss,
Yeah.
that product is lost. And so, like, wherever we make an investment, that investment needs to return. We are not running a museum. We are running a store. And so, like, if we make an investment on something, we need an expectation of movement. And so sometimes customers will come in and be like, oh, you don't carry Flesh and Blood, for instance. We're not a big Flesh and Blood store.
Right.
Like, oh, you don't have any Flesh and Blood? Like, no, we carried it for some time, but it just sat there, you know?
Yeah.
And it just was a bad investment. Oh, you guys don't carry board games? We did. We tried. But nobody would buy them from us, you know?
Yeah.
It just was not a product that customers necessarily thought that they needed from us, you know? Like,
Right.
and that's not to say that our customers don't buy stuff from us. They do. But
Just
now
not
we're
that.
exactly
Yeah.
just not that. So now we're catering our business to what customers are saying they want from us, and thank God that we do all of those. That we have those conversations with customers so that they can be open and honest. But there's a lot of card games that we were very enthusiastic about, that we were very excited about, that we'd bring in because one or two people would be like, "Yeah, I'm interested," and we were just like a little loosey goosey with our money, and we are not that at all. You know, like we made that very public post at the beginning of the year where we did like the state of the store, and we were like, "Hey, we're treating these games as, you know, tier A, we'll try to have a stock as often as we can. And then there's tier B, where we'll order maybe just for events. And then there's tier C, where if you want it, pre-order it from us, otherwise you're not getting it from us. You know? Because, like, I can't just have stuff sitting on my shelf anymore. That's lost money, and we don't have a lot of that.
Yeah, and it gets crazy too, and space too is a problem. And one of the things that I don't know that people notice or realize sometimes, especially from a customer perspective, is how much effort it takes to sell something and get it out of your store.
Right.
Because not a single one of our board games, unless the customer's already looking for it,
Right.
sells unless we talk about it.
Right.
And
Right.
and it's the same with a lot of TCGs.
Right.
So there are some TCGs that sell themselves.
Sure.
You know,
Like
Magic is Pokemon, Magic. You know,
The staples.
the staples.
But if you want to get something into Altered,
I have, you know,
I saw
Robin's
a-
trying so
Robin's
a
been
lot of
a
work.
ton of time.
dude, I love Altered.
It's so much
It's
fun.
the only game that I realistically would say I play these days.
Yeah.
And dude, it's very tough to build a community around Altered because even though it did phenomenally in their Kickstarter, and there's something to say about the fact that they still hadn't done their like print to play option.
Yeah.
Like they've been a little slow moving on things that they promised from last year. But that game is cool.
It's a
And-
great game.
and
a great
it's got a
concept.
champion in the store.
Yeah,
and
you
still,
but you got to prove it, and you got to talk to everybody.
Yeah.
It's you
The-
know, it's
the amount of
dedicated
time and labor.
hours,
Jeez.
and you know, and we have a big Flesh and Blood community,
Right.
And we spent so
you guys are the Flesh and Blood
much
store.
time.
You know, when people come in here looking for Flesh and Blood, I go Oddwillows. Check them out. They're 20 minutes away.
Yeah, well, and now we're having problems getting product, but that's a whole other
Really?
thing too. Yeah, it's actually we're having issues getting product, like
just kind of across the board for TCGs.
TCGs
Yeah.
in general.
Yeah, all the TCGs right now I feel like are
Some
heavily
factory in
allocated.
China like
yeah.
exploded.
Yeah,
and
because like even Magic's real rough to get right now too. So it's
Have you done your numbers for the Final Fantasy yet? No, right?
not allocations.
Have you
no.
done pre-orders for it?
We don't take
taken
money.
requests.
Taking requests, not money.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's the same thing that we're doing. We've got like a list of people that are interested,
Yeah.
but we haven't taken any money yet.
Yeah.
once we get our allocation,
Because
we're
when
gonna-
they send me an email that says that I'm getting 3 boxes, I don't want to let 150 people
Exactly.
down.
Well, yeah, and so once we get allocation, the plan I think is to call them, and then we'll take prepayment
Right.
with what we've been allocated.
and if that means 2 people, that means 2 people.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
And hey, listen, it was out of my fucking hands.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
what I was supposed to do.
I will say though that Final Fantasy is probably the numbers wise, based on our cost alone
yeah,
for us, that is like half a month's worth of revenue and pre-orders we have right now.
yeah, I bet.
Like it is insane.
It is the pre-orders we have way blow out of the water any
Yeah,
full
Anything
purchase
else.
or
Right.
release we've ever had.
ever, yeah.
Yeah.
Between Final Fantasy, Spider-Man, and Avatar: The Last Airbender, this year is going to be fucking nuts for
I'm
Magic.
all in on Avatar.
Dude,
I
don't even
want
know
it
that we're going to
all.
have enough Avatar to cover what like the owners are going to want.
I
you
know.
Forget about
Allocation? What allocation? They said we're not getting
we
anything.
got 0. I hate to break it to you.
I'm also not gonna lie. The amount of product I ordered for the Gundam TCG is mainly
Right.
for me.
we ordered full disclosure, we're bringing in Gundams to the store.
Oh, nice.
And
Oh, that's
we're
awesome.
going in on the Gundam TCG. But when we were teasing that in the Discord, I have never seen the Discord that awake. You know, like it was just like boom, 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 all night long. And we were just like, oh shit, this is so cool.
I'm
So
such a collector for Gundam.
Yeah.
Like
we're bringing in all the Gunpla accessories too, like all the tools.
That's amazing.
We with Lightspeed Global, those like red tools that they have.
Oh,
we're bringing
that's
the whole
amazing.
fucking kit. Yeah,
we've been toying around with bringing in Gundam or Beyblade, and I
Yeah.
think that
Beyblade to me is too loud. That's my
I think
only
Bey-
gripe.
I know. I think though I've had enough people in the last like 3 months ask about it. Not just Geo.
I was going to say,
unfortunately.
one of our employees is so passionate about it
Yeah.
that, like, we know it would move, but it is loud, it's obnoxious, it's
I had
Hosting
still
Beyblade
very
would be
niche.
crazy. We had one person playing Beyblade in here a couple of weeks ago, and it was happening during a crossover session of mine, and I'm just like, Beyblade is surprisingly a loud game. You know, like
Yes, it's really
that was
loud.
one
Yeah.
game going. Like if I was doing a tournament, that'd
Oh
be
my
pretty
God.
rough.
So that's when we just
Yeah.
run them in summer and just put it in the parking lot.
Yeah, that
Right.
might be the
Put a
best way to
tent
do it.
out and
Actually,
just,
that might look or feel cooler too, just doing it
Yeah.
outside.
But I know, so I think that's the next thing, because I wanted to start stepping into some Gundam, like Gunpla and stuff, but it's, the more I research it and stuff, we don't have the space
Yeah.
or the capital to do the volume
Right.
that I think we need, or the variety that we need to carry.
You know, it's interesting, capital and all that, because like, I mean, I'm not going to say we got capital, right? We don't have capital. But we've been around for more than 2 years now, which means that we were able to apply for a revolving line of credit.
Yeah.
And that made a huge difference. And our ability to secure loans is much more consistent and much more stable at good rates for
Yeah.
higher loans, because we have like Because thank God Liz exists, and she does phenomenal. If you're listening to Liz, to this, Liz, thank you, because she does a phenomenal job with our back end. She makes sure that it always makes sense and it always looks good to potential investors.
Yes.
And so when we're looking at things like getting a new loan or things like that, we are now able to secure more capital. But also, because of her responsibility, we don't do that lightly. We don't just willy-nilly take things. When so like right now, Quinn and I, we went to Gamma and we came back with like stars in our eyes, and we were like, these are all the things that we need to bring into the store. And admittedly, it's a lot of stuff. It's like $40,000 worth of new product. You know, like we're bringing in paint lines and we're bringing in Gundam and we're bringing in Squishables and we're bringing all sorts of fucking shit that I saw on the floor.
Squishables are great.
They're so cool, right?
They're so good.
And
I would just live in the Squishable booth if I could.
Literally, that's like I was just like, you have little hydras, like I was so excited. The big Mothman, I'm a huge Mothman fan.
Yes.
And so, like we're bringing all that stuff, but that money doesn't just appear, and a money person, a really serious money person, will scrutinize it and will go, what's the expected turn rate on this? Like why are we investing this? Why are we indebting ourselves into the situation? Like this has to make sense for us.
Yeah.
And so thankfully, what I was saying is in a position where, if we are going to make big moves like that, we are thankfully in a situation where we can find the capital for it.
Right.
But that wasn't always the case. When we were first starting out, dude, this was all done with fucking hopes and dreams. My parents borrowed us money. Some of us maxed out our fucking. I had bad credit, so I did not max out my credit cards. But my business partners who had better credit maxed out their fucking credit cards for this. This was just fucking shoestringed together,
like fully, completely on blast, and like we thrive on transparency, right? And so we tanked, or like Ben and I tanked our credit, getting the business and then using our personal credit cards to get started, and it's so hard to, and that's another aspect of business I don't think is talked about. Owning your own business, I don't think is talked about nearly enough, is access to inexpensive credit.
Right.
And
no, money costs money.
Yeah,
money costs a lot of money.
POS loans.
Yeah.
The fucking predatory as all.
So our first POS loan was at 20%.
Yeah.
That was a lot.
Insane.
Yeah.
It is insane.
We took it.
Yeah, and we did too. We've done two of them.
But it was a lot.
Because it's the only...
Now our POS loans, we have them at 9%.
Oh, that's really good.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah, but we took them because that's... that's what we had access to.
Right.
And we needed it. A furnace died, or we needed to do this, or we needed to do that, And it's just...
Dude, when you have no money and somebody goes, would you like $40,000? It's like, yeah. It's like, it's going to cost you a lot of money, and you're like, I'll figure it out. Just give it to me.
Yep.
Yeah, because I need it.
Yeah, we paid off that loan, or we got to the point where we could pay off that loan, and we paid off our personal loans that November.
Yeah.
And that's why it was like turbulent up until that moment.
Yeah.
And it was right there where it cleared, where I was like, oh, okay, actually this might be livable. I might be able to do this.
Because it's rough until you get to that point, and we're getting out of that second POS loan in a week.
Yeah, we're $3,000
away
away from finishing it off.
That's awesome.
That's huge. Yeah.
But
it's
huge.
That's a big thing that people don't consider whenever we make these new moves where it's just like, I want to bring in Gundam, or I want to bring in whatever. Okay, that's a lot of money for new product.
Yeah.
Where are you going to get that money?
Right.
And people are just like, hey, you should bring in this. And I'm just like,
well, that's
I'll try to figure it out.
we paint lines are one of the things that we get asked about a lot. Like, oh, are you bringing in Fanatics? Are you bringing in Pro Crow? What about Turbo Dork?
Right.
And it's like, well, yeah, I really want to bring in all of these because, I'd love to.
Thousands of dollars.
Thousands.
Because people don't realize when you're bringing in a new product or a new line,
you
can't
six
just
of everything.
bring in the primary colors.
Right.
You have to drop the entire line.
Yeah.
If you don't have all
to
of
go
it,
in.
people don't want it.
Yeah, we're bringing in P3, Turbo Dork, AK Interactive, and Vallejo, the new Vallejo line.
Oh,
that's
my
4
gosh.
paint lines.
Wow.
That's a
incredible.
lot of fucking money in paint lines.
I'm coming to you, and I'm going to buy stuff from you. because
start hosting the paint classes here.
I have a love-hate relationship with Turbo Dork, which is why we haven't brought them in yet.
Yeah.
But
they're new formula is good.
Is it?
It covers
Okay.
really well.
Okay.
They gave us some samples about a year ago.
Oh, nice.
And I've been using them like at the store just for like painting random
do
stuff.
stuff like that.
And
That's
it's one
awesome.
coat. You know, like it's not
nice.
what it used to be. Like you can just put a coat on something and it just looks good. Where like the original formulas were a lot like you have to really work at it and work at layer and layer and
Yeah,
layer.
and that was my
Yeah.
issue with Turbo Dork. But like Fanatics, when people kept asking me about, oh hey, are you getting Fanatics? And I'm like, oh, it's a $4,000 rack.
Right.
Like
Yeah. That's a spicy meatball,
Like
for
that's
sure.
and we're looking at bringing in the Gamer Grass rack. I have one sitting with my distributor right now, and it's
Yeah.
like, oh my god,
We carry
$900.
all of the gamer grass.
Yeah.
The rack wasn't big enough. We don't carry the rack because it didn't cover how much
How
product
much you
of
do,
theirs
yeah.
we have. Yeah, like we're just buying fixtures now with
Yeah.
this big like new addition that we're doing to our inventory. We're buying the 4-way fixture thing.
Oh, nice. Oh,
From
yeah.
Webstront, by the way. If you guys don't have Webstront,
Webstrant's
get Webstront.
amazing.
Yeah,
That's
it's
where
so
we
good.
first
That's
found
where we
our
got the
tables.
tables.
Yeah.
Yeah. We got our tables from Webstrant. So, but yeah, it's crazy because there is such a huge investment, and it's not as simple as like, yeah, I can just bring this in.
No.
You like in a lot of cases
Dude,
too.
and God forbid it doesn't move.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like bringing in Pro-Acryl, like you turned me on to Pro-Acryl.
Yeah.
So, and
You know, the only reason I suggested it is because, like, it really just does move. Like,
Yeah,
like I was
it
just
does.
like, I would have never, like,
I've turned that rack
respectfully,
twice
yeah.
in 4 months.
No, yeah, respectfully,
Like-
I would have never said, hey, you should do this. I would have kept my fucking mouth shut. Like,
Yeah.
It was just such a good product.
No,
that
yeah.
I knew it was going to move.
And now I use it almost exclusively, like in
Right.
when I paint minis
Yeah,
and stuff.
same.
And so it's just such a good line. But I was really nervous because Pro-Acryl was one of those like, well, you can't get our paints unless you do the rack.
Right.
Like you have to do the rack.
Yeah. And that was also a pricey little meatball.
Yeah,
that was not
that
inexpensive.
was like $3,500 or something
Yeah.
like that to bring that in.
With
so.
both the racks and all the stuff and
Yeah,
the steel side compartments, your brushes, all that stuff.
Yeah,
That was
all
not
of it.
cheap.
No,
Yeah.
and so
Oh, it moves so well, though.
It does really well. So I'm not disappointed that we brought that in. But you know,
Pro-Acryl's just such a good paint, you know?
Yeah.
I think Tooth and Coats is the only one that I'm just like, nah, do we really need the other side?
so
We have people buy it, but it's not like it doesn't have the same turn as Fanatic or,
No.
or the other one.
I some of that I think is name too. It moves pretty well for us because we don't have like Fanatic. We have the little bitty tiny Citadel
Yeah.
thing in our foundations rack, and then we've got Tooth and Coats. We now finally just got Wave 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Speed Paint and then Pro-Acryl.
Yeah.
And so because I don't carry Fanatics, I think that's why Tooth and Coats moves as well
Yeah,
as it does.
right.
And I like to talk about Tooth and Coats because I love the company.
Yeah.
Was it Transatlantic
Yep,
Games?
Transatlantic, yeah.
Wonderful people. Bob Watts is great. Love him to pieces. Whenever I have a question or I send a question, he responds, and
Right.
he's just they're some of the most genuine people
Yeah.
I've ever met.
That's one of the cool things about going to Gamma, that you get to meet these people and exchange numbers and just be like, hey, if I need something, if I
Yeah.
have a question, can I just reach out to you? And they're always just like, abso-fucking-lutely. You can.
Yeah, and it's incredible, you know, to know like, hey, I had this problem, the distributor's not fixing it, and he's like, I'll fix it for you.
Yeah,
I'm like,
right,
okay.
for sure. Yeah, say
Awesome.
less.
You know, and and that's why we try to curate stuff that is smaller creator too, and smaller company, you know, either independent publishers or products that have a good story behind it.
Yeah.
Because it's easier to, I don't want to say it's easier, that's not the right term. I want to support those people who are busting ass just like we are,
Yeah.
right? You know, and the small independent creators, because I like seeing people succeed,
Right.
Right, you know, and WotC doesn't need our help, you know.
Yeah, dude, honestly, genuinely, you know, like a lot of the third-party stuff that I carry for, you know, like the Valdispire Secrets and you know, the Heliana's Guide, is because I met
Yeah.
those dudes, and they're very cool.
They're so good.
And there's just nice people, you know?
Yeah, and like Storytellers Forge down in Chicago, Rick Hines,
Yeah.
amazing people.
Yeah.
Like Black Ballad's incredible,
Right.
Like it's so I
Yeah, and you're right, WotC doesn't need our help.
No.
WotC's fine, you know? And actually, I don't know how willing I am to, like, continue to support massive corporations like that. You
Yeah.
know? They make a lot of moves that, like, are questionable. And like, from a business perspective, I don't condone a lot of the things that I hear happening at WotC, but I certainly understand them, and that's what makes me more upset. that like I know why they're doing it, and it's just like, well, that's gross,
Yeah.
like don't like you're like they made a lot of like really public moves regarding their staff right before Christmas.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a horrific thing to do, dude. And so
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know that I need to help them.
No.
Like they seem to be doing what they want to do.
Exactly. And I'd rather bring stuff and support creators who are really doing the work, right?
Yeah.
And who are
Doing it for the
pushing
fun.
forward. And and two, bringing in like minority creators as well and carrying their games is important, because getting traction for them is so important, because it's easy to buy Magic, right? But it's not so easy to buy a board game that was made by some guy in his basement. He's just really trying his best,
Right.
I'm
I'm a huge fan of those. So
Yeah.
like Instagram really knows this about me now, because I get ads for this all the time. But I love like CCGs. Made by nobody.
Yep.
Like made by just some person that's making a CCG.
Yeah.
By the way, terrible idea. Don't do that. Don't make a
Don't do it.
CCG. That's a
Yeah.
huge amount of like endeavor. But also, if you do, you gotta have at least one person who's gonna buy your shit. Because like I don't know what it is about these like indie CCGs that I just fucking love. There's just something about like I don't know.
It's the heart and soul of it.
Yeah, it feels like that.
I think especially after the pandemic and everything, we crave connection. Something that's deeper and more important than just a piece of paper.
Right.
And so knowing that it's coming from people whose lives you're making a difference in.
Yeah, and I feel like the corporatization of game mechanics upsets me. Mm-hmm. It like tastes gross.
Yeah.
Like GW's big on this, and I'm not going to ask you guys to comment, but we're dropping GW, so
Yeah.
If you're hearing this, GW, know that I'm saying this with my full chest. I think a lot of the decisions that they make around their game are business decisions to move their product.
Yes.
And like that to me is not what a game should be. Like I get that that's what a business is. I get that that's what a corporation is.
Yeah.
But that's why I don't fuck with them so hard, because that doesn't seem to me like a game anymore. That just seems like
spirit.
that seems like to me that just seems like a big money machine that moves to make more money, and the game is perfunctory. And like I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not exciting.
That's where WotC's going a lot with the Magic stuff, because a lot of people with Tarkir right now, it's kind of this breath of, this is back to Magic.
Right.
This is not
Wait a
Magic.
second, we're getting a Magic set?
Right. It's not Magic in space. It's not Magic wearing cowboy hats. It's just Magic.
Yeah.
And it's, even though it got like so overshadowed by Final Fantasy, there's still a lot of excitement to it, because like this is just Magic.
Yeah.
And as a newer player, I'm scrambling because I'm like, oh my god, there's so much lore here. What do I do?
Right.
But it's great because it's like, oh, this doesn't feel kitschy. This doesn't feel like a money grab. This feels like going back to honoring your players.
Yeah.
And giving them the good game.
It almost feels out of place.
Yeah.
Yeah, a
Which
little bit.
sucks.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
weird.
and
And like I got into Magic in the last 4 years. So like I didn't know Magic when it was just Magic. I got into Magic already past the first Universes Beyond.
Yeah.
So like I think Universes Beyond, Godzilla and Walking Dead had already come out. So like I've always known Magic is a thing that was going to have other things in it.
Yeah.
But like a lot of people do not. A lot of people have been playing Magic for a long time. They've not had that experience of Magic.
Yeah.
And so when they're just like, holy shit, an actual Magic set is coming out, that's wild. I'm just like, wait, what do you mean?
Yeah. What are you talking about? No, and I'm excited for Tarkir because I'm really new into Magic, and it's definitely not my favorite game. I'm sorry. Sorry, Robyn. I'm a Flesh and Blood player.
Honestly,
I know.
I'm getting more to like my favorite game is kind of turning into Altered.
That's right.
So I'll
Altered's
forgive
really
you.
good.
Altered has a cool tempo to it that I really
does.
enjoy.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it.
So, but like, I really do like what is coming for Tarkir.
Yeah.
I wish they were doing the pre-release a little differently, but
I don't mind how they're doing it. I wish they would have told us sooner.
yeah.
And I would have had more time because I like just realized that they're doing the 5 different pre-release kits.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, how do I? Okay, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
They have
yeah.
to reticket everything.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know. I think Tarkir is going to be interesting because Aether Drift did poorly for us.
Aether Drift was almost as bad as Markov.
Oh,
Almost.
Yeah.
No,
It's Carla.
Karlov.
Yeah.
Karlov.
I've had
The only reason
the
only reason I caught it is because I say that all the time. I always call it Markov.
But yeah, because like Karlov did. I mean, for us, that was like the first set that released when we just opened, and so
Karlov, yeah,
and so
Dude,
it didn't
that
sell.
So we eventually sold out of all our Karlov, but it was the slowest one.
It took one customer who wanted a specific card to buy the 2 boxes on the shelf that we had to get rid of it.
We never reordered, and nobody's asked.
Of course.
No, and it was almost that bad, but not quite as bad. Only because we have a bigger base now for it.
Sure, yeah.
But I still have product on the shelf.
Yeah.
And which has not been
Karlov
the case.
product?
No, Aether Drift.
Oh, Aether Drift.
Which has not been the case for previous sets.
Yeah, so it's really touch and go with Magic, right? Like Thunder Junction. We ordered so much Thunder Junction, I was just like, guys, this is another one of those just like, you know what? This is absolutely none of my fucking business.
Yep.
But like, when I received our Thunder Junction product, there was so much of it that I was uncomfortable. I looked at that counter with all the Thunder Junction product, and I was just like, oh, God, I hope this moves. And then, not 3 days later, it was gone.
Yeah. And actually, I feel like OTJ in the last couple of weeks has picked up significantly, and I don't know why.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a lot of TCG singles have been OTJ recently, and then we had a request at some point for an OTJ collector box and collector boosters and stuff like that, and it's just been selling a little bit more. And I don't know if it's just because I'm seeing it more or maybe more aware of it.
I
but
haven't
it's
noticed
weird.
much pickup, but there's always things where I wish WotC made it a little bit easier for stores, and this goes for TCGs in general. If you're a company that does TCGs, please do this. Is that ultimately you can sell a product better if you understand the game and you understand the lore and you understand the stuff behind it.
Right.
But when you're selling 5 to 10 to 15 different TCGs and these different board games and Warhammer and all this other stuff, there's so much lore that unless you're genuinely invested in it, you can't understand it all.
Yes.
If they could just...
WotC has no lore documentation.
No.
None.
I actually had a
None.
conversation with a rep from them, and I was like, if you just made these
Yeah.
lore primers.
What is this
stores
about?
And new players. It's
Right.
just who killed whose brother, and that's why this war started.
Right.
And not the whole fluff and the 8-hour story. Just give me
Right.
the basics.
Right.
It would make it so much easier.
Yeah.
And then there's stuff with other sets selling, with new sets releasing, is where the mechanics overlap. If Tarkir is going to have a lot of, it's going to go back to sprees and bring that back, then we should expect that we also need to carry more OTJ, because
Yeah.
that was spree heavy too. And giving us those primers would help us sell the product better, help the community do better, because we don't have time to in-depthly understand all these games.
I feel like that's one of the things that companies kind of leverage, though. These big companies. A company like WotC or a company like Games Workshop, what they do is they leverage their size in order to force you to either go all in on their product or do it poorly.
Yeah.
And so so it's an in for a penny, in for a pound, like the sunk cost fallacy, where if you want to carry WotC, you invest, right? You drop your over thousands and thousands of dollars to invest. And then you realize you don't have enough knowledge to do good on that investment. So you either have to dedicate a lot more time to it, or you have to lose on that investment. And I'm not going to lose on that investment, so I'm going to dedicate more time to it. Because I already had to invest so much money, and it's such a big product, and it's a product that everybody loves. So now I just have to go all in on this product, and I have to do the research, and I have to go and read the, lore that I find online, and blah, 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 and spend all this time. And, that's being a bully, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
That's kind of bullying me into...
It's a little bit blackmail.
Yeah, it's a little bit of blackmail. It's oh, you want this product to do good, and you need to carry it.
Tell me the top 3 songs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what are the top 3 songs? So, that to me is something that you don't see with these smaller games. These smaller games don't expect you to dedicate your entire store to these games, and the big games they do.
Yeah.
They position themselves in order to do that. That's why we are dropping. Full disclosure. That's why we're dropping GW.
Yeah.
Because they go either you're all in or you're gonna make your customers unhappy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with GW, I've gotten to a good place with my rep, at least right now, and I am a firm believer too that a rep
Oh yeah,
really
Well,
like
make or break
makes
it.
a difference. I mean, I actually fired a rep at Gamma.
yeah. At Gamma,
At Gamma.
to their face.
No, to their manager though.
Okay, yeah.
But no, because
I was gonna say, damn, that's cold-hearted.
they,
I waited until I could see them.
That would be one I do.
because like it just I'm not interested in somebody who would rather talk to my husband than me.
Right.
You know,
That's really
and-
big with reps. You know,
Yeah.
that's with distribution. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
How like it's like an old boys club. It kind of
It
feels
is,
like.
yeah, and it's been 2 different reps that have done that to me.
Yeah.
And so, and one company was so, and just not going to name names, but one company was so bad, I haven't used them since we opened.
Yeah.
You know, I put in 1, maybe 2 orders with them, and then I was like, you know what, fuck you.
Yeah.
Because I'm not doing that.
Yeah, a rep can really make or break a relationship. And like
Yeah.
that's sales. Listen, if distribution is listening, you really make sure that your salespeople are good at sales.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because you know what's bad? What determines a person is bad at sales? If somebody on the other end gets annoyed with them or gets upset with them.
Yeah.
If you're good at sales, that doesn't happen.
No. Well, and I don't want to be, and like Games Workshop has this habit of pushing things that we don't need. Right.
Yeah.
And and pushing things we don't need,
You've
or
sold
even
2 of this thing. You should get 80 of this new release.
yeah, and I'm like, no. And so a lot of times I have to, and like I get that like Games Workshop reps are kind of like they are forced to say things and forced to
Right. They're
have
kind of
certain-
almost reading off the script. It almost.
yeah, and they have to, and you know, and they have to, and I know that's what they're doing because it's they're they're a corporation now, whatever.
Right. And they're an employee. It's not like
But-
they're choosing to be like.
Yeah, but I have to like strong arm and say no, I am not taking that much product. I want to. Like if that, or and then I know that they have to question like, did you really not want this new release? And it's like, and in the back of my mind I'm like, oh, this might not be doing well for you because you're trying to push this, right? And so Games Workshop is rough.
Yeah.
Because if your rep is really, really pushing, really, really shovey, it's going to be a hard time. So, but it's, I don't know. And I don't know.
I think a lot of the reason you push the nose to me is I've developed a very like shit or get off the pot mentality with people who are trying to sell stuff to me.
Sure,
It's
yeah.
like, all right, I understand you have a pitch. Give me your pitch.
Right.
Okay, cool. I have questions. Can
Right.
you answer my questions? No? Okay, goodbye.
Yeah.
You answered my questions? Great. Are they actually things I want?
Right.
Awesome. I'll carry you. No? You know what? I appreciate your time, but it's just not for us. And it's...
Yeah.
When you're so inundated and you're working with different reps and people who want to be in your store or different companies or services or whatever else, you get so tired of the pitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
you
it's super
see through the
interesting.
push.
It's really weird the discernment between networking and knowing that positive networking will create a better situation for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we go to Gamma and we meet distributors, and if you can meet that distributor and shake hands and maybe have some drinks, I don't drink, so it's a little harder for me, but maybe have some drinks and really establish a relationship with them, that can turn into an easier way down the line.
Yeah.
But also, sometimes what makes it easier is the literal polar opposite to that, which is that if somebody calls you and they're trying to be fucking friendly, you go, hey, listen, I'm not trying to be your friend. I have a business to run. This is what I need, period.
Yeah.
And like, when is the one and when is the other is so fucking...
It's crazy.
It's like you have to
Yeah.
just be good as
Yeah.
that, because sometimes when a rep calls and goes, hey, we've got a lot of these things, do you want this, this, and this, and this? I'm just like, no, I don't need any of that. I'm like, well, are you sure? Blah, blah, blah. Listen, I'm sure. I need this.
yeah.
Or sometimes it's a little bit of, hey, listen, I'm going to scratch your back a little bit on this situation, but you're going to have to scratch my back a little bit later on.
Yeah.
Okay? Are you cool with that?
Yeah.
If we're cool, then fine. Then I'll buy the product now. And yeah, that discernment is just so integral to our business and to ordering, and it's just, not a thing they teach you. It's not intuitive. You have to figure it out. It's weird.
Yeah, we have the advantage of coming from working with a manufacturer, and so we were actually privy to the back end of things. So from the opposite side of the distribution channel, where we were the manufacturers selling to the distributors, and so thankfully, like, we already had a pretty good hand on what how distribution worked and stuff, and how it was sold, and we had that way back behind the curtain knowledge, and that helped us a ton
Right. Yeah.
in dealing with
You
the
need
reps.
to watch out for.
because I was able to jump in with some of these reps and just have a great idea in how to handle the conversations.
Right.
And so that helped a ton.
Yeah.
But like, there's still reps where I'm just like, I have no fucking idea what I'm doing with this guy because, or this situation or this product, because it's crazy. There's no guidebook to it, right?
No.
And we can all give each other advice but we're all just making it up as we go.
Yeah, because like we were saying before, that's just another person on the other end.
Yeah.
You know, like they're just trying to figure it out too. They're trying to figure out how to talk to you in a way that's going to benefit them.
Right.
And you have to figure out a way to talk to them in a way that's going to benefit you. And it's such a person-to-person, context-to-context kind of situation.
Yeah.
And like there's no, it's I think because we're all used to ordering portals, we don't realize that that's kind of the way that it's been done for a million billion years.
Yeah.
And so when you actually have to deal with that, it's like, well, this is unintuitive. Normally, I just say, I need this for this price, and that's it. When, like, the reality is, you can actually, to a rep, go, hey, if I get this much more, can I get it this much less? And then they go, yeah, we can make that work. And it's like, wait, that fucking worked? What the fuck? You know, like,
yeah. And there's wiggle room, and it's interesting to see how that works. And you know, there is some negotiation and stuff that you can do depending on what you're buying and how much of it. So, yeah.
Okay, so this episode is probably going to go out. What day is today? Thursday?
Friday.
Today's Friday?
Friday.
This episode might go out Monday.
Okay, cool.
Okay? So if it goes out Monday, nobody better hold me to that Monday.
I'm not going to hold you to that Monday. Not at all.
I will be calling you at 11:59 Sunday night. Are you ready?
What the fuck? So if this episode goes out Monday, what do you want the people who are listening to this to know about what's going on at Oddwillow's right now?
GaryCon. So yeah, if it goes up Monday, we will be at GaryCon. We're going to be in the Chalet and doing a bunch of different TCG events. One cool thing is that if you're familiar with Legends of Evantris and the Crooked Moon, Andy Flynn, who, if you know him, you might know him as Torbeck from Witchlight, he will actually be playing in one of our events on Friday. So it'll be super fun. Andy's a great guy. I had a chance to meet him a few times, and just wonderful to talk to. So super excited about that. And then I think up and coming, we've got a bunch of different events going on. We have a fantasy drawing class that's actually coming up in April that we're pretty excited about.
Yep.
And then lots of stuff always going on.
We have events almost daily at this point, pre-releases and learn to plays and tons of beginner-friendly RPGs and pretty much a little bit of something for everybody.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So,
and then let everybody know where they can find you on the internet.
Yeah, so we are at www.oddwillows.com, and
on almost every social media platform, we are just Oddwillows, except Instagram, which is OddwillowsGH, because Instagram hates us.
Truth.
That was a whole thing. And we're on everything. We're on Discord, we're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky.
You're on Blue Sky.
We're on Blue Sky.
Do you use it?
I post to it.
Oh, that's cool.
More for personal stuff I do, but
I signed up to Blue Sky when TikTok went down.
Yeah.
I like it.
I post to it.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah, so we'll see how it goes long term.
I've left my personal socials at this point. I don't pay much attention to it. So
my personal socials have turned into my business socials.
Basically.
Yeah, I don't really use socials unless I'm doing it for business, unfortunately.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for the 3.5-ish hours that you spent with me today.
Absolutely. It was a blast.
I really
Thank
appreciate
you for having us. I appreciate it.
Okay. Well, thank you for tuning in, everybody. You should hear the outro music now. I don't have headphones on, so hopefully it's not too loud. If you have anything to say or questions or comments or anything like that, please post about it in whatever way you listen to this, or on Facebook or on Discord. Just reach out to us. We'll see you probably next month with another one of these.